Use Committee and ZRBC. As this meeting is being conducted remotely, all votes will be taken via roll call. All right, Liz, a little roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Gaffney.
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond is not here yet. Member Covino.
Yes.
Member Espejo.
Yes.
Member Impemba is, I don't see him. Member Impemba, are you here?
Yes.
Yep.
Oh, excellent. Member LaRue.
Yes.
So I think we have 5-0.
So I would like to ask both Dave Webb and Sherry if those members that you can see on, if you can do a roll call with them at this point. So Sherry, why don't you start?
Okay, Sherry, I see Sherry Ellis is here, DVRC, and I see Tamara.
Yep, I'm here.
Okay, I see Mark Donahue.
Yep, I'm here.
And that's the only ones I see, so speak up, DVRC, if, oh, I see Sally just hopped on, Sally Willard.
Okay, great.
Anybody else from DVRC speak up? I don't see you.
Okay, and then Dave Webb, if you can recognize your committee.
Okay, I'm the chair and I just see Pat O'Brien
Pat?
on right now. Pat, do you see anybody else?
I don't see anybody else, but yes, for roll call.
Okay, great.
All right. We okay then, Kristen?
Yep, proceed.
All right. So let's start off with the Pledge of Allegiance. Pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. Thank you. Now let's see what we got. Liz, let's see. I got the Town of Burlington will be holding the February 16, 2022 joint meeting of the Planning Board, Zoning Bylaw Review, and Land Use Committees as a virtual electronic meeting due to the current state of emergency due to COVID-19 virus. As such, the governor issued an executive order on March 12, 2020, authorizing remote meetings under General Law, Section 30A, Section 20, excuse me.
Those seeking
Chapter
to
38, Section 20.
Can everyone hear me?
Yep.
Yes.
Those seeking to participate remotely can do so via the following. You can go to townofburlington.webex.com. The meeting number is 233-130-2768, and the password is 1645. You can join by phone at 1-617-315-0704. This meeting is also being broadcast on the Beacon Government Channel, which can be found on Comcast Channel 99, RCN Channel 52, Verizon Channel 41, and streamed on Facebook Live via the BCAT Facebook page. The public will be able to make comments during the hearing during the time for public comment.
Hello.
Hi, Paul.
Keep going.
Questions can be asked via WebEx, the WebEx chat function, and Facebook Live chat function during the meeting. All persons wishing to ask a question or make a comment must identify themselves first, please.
Okay, thank you. All right, first on the agenda here is citizens' time. Is there anyone in the audience that would like to speak on an item that is not currently on the agenda? If so, identify yourself or raise your hand remotely or on the screen. Okay. Seeing none. Staff, anybody out there that you see?
No, we don't see anyone.
Okay. All right, administrative matters. We're holding this joint meeting to hear the zoning bylaw amendments being proposed for the May 9th town meeting. All right, this is a public hearing petition to amend Network Drive at Northwest Park Plan Development District zoning provisions, Article I, use regulations, Article 2, definitions, Article 3, density and dimensional requirements, Article 4, parking and land regulations, Article 5, administration and procedures, Article 6, signage, Article 7, miscellaneous, Article 7, Kendall Road easement, and Article 9, traffic analysis submitted by No Bloom Development Company and affiliates, NDB property owner 1 LP and NDB property owner 2 LP. Is that correct on the Kendall Road easement? Is that Article 7 as well? Miscellaneous and Article 7 is Kendall Road easement. That's both the same thing? Staff? Staff have that one? Is that both Article 7s, the one I just said?
I think, I think Kendall Road might be 8.
Thank you. All right. All right, who's here on behalf of this item?
Good evening to the respective chairmans. For the record, Robert Buckley, Rima Bronstein. I have with me this evening Todd Fremont Smith from the Nordblum Companies and Frank DePietro, our site civil engineer. Todd has a presentation that he'll take the respective boards through, but the purpose of this proposal is twofold. One, this PDD has a history starting back in 1996 and was unique in that it entailed a corporate campus and was designed to be flexible and respond to changing market conditions, which was one of the principal policy objectives of the PDD. We've seen a number of iterations over the last 20 so years. And we've seen a real emergence of the life science industry in particular in this area. And there is the opportunity here to add approximately 3 additional buildings to the campus to fully activate the campus to hopefully capture some of that emerging industry for the Burlington area. That's number one. And number two, having worked with this for 20 some odd years, there have been a number of changes to the underlying definitions in the zoning bylaws of the town. We view this as an opportunity to bring the definitions that were originally in the PDD into conformity with some of the definitions, particularly with respect to life science and other definitions, so that from an ease of administration standpoint, the town would be able to efficiently administer compliance going forward. The largest one, which is we've found over the last 20 or so years, is the concept of net leasable space, which is a very complex real estate concept, where the limitation on development here was defined as net leasable space, which you would start with gross space, which is an easy concept, build wall to wall, measure the square, and then you would deduct areas that are not for human occupation or mechanicals. It became a very complex calculation for the town to administer, and it changes over time. As a tenant would come or an area would be built out, there would be modifications to that. So for ease of administration, we're suggesting that the limitations be put back or to be defined as gross space, which is a universally understood concept, and would just make the administration of the compliance aspect a little more reasonable for the town. So, and just for point of information, net space on average is about 80% of gross space. So just for, there's an increase in gross space, but that reflects the change in the formula. So with that, I'm going to turn it over to Todd, who has a presentation that, cognizant of the time period, we can hopefully go through relatively quickly. Todd?
Well, thanks, Bob, and hello, everyone. Good night. Good evening. If Brady will allow me to share, which I think he will, I can pull up these slides. I do have some slides. As Bob said, I've been cautioned to be quick, so let's see if I can get this to work. Bear with me. I've got the wheel of death. Anyone else? Oh, there we go.
There you go.
All right, so there we go. So thanks again, and I will be brief. As Bob said, the primary goal of what we're trying to accomplish is the ability to grow. There are a bunch of definitional changes in the zoning. We can work through that as we move closer to town meeting, but just keep in mind the primary goal here is to try to capture more of the life science market. So we started to think about Network Drive, and I promise I'll speak for under 5 minutes, just the evolution of this asset. And I've been at Nordblum for shockingly more than 25 years. You can tell by the color of my hair, but this asset really has evolved, and I've seen it evolve, and as many of you over time. This is the 150-acre campus on the left side of the screen, which was always sort of this northern outpost at Northwest Park as we were working on the initial phases of redevelopment. It was Sun Microsystems, and before that it was other uses. And in 2007 we acquired it, and we've been working on it. I'll take you through that, but it is a very unique case study, I think, in terms of planning, long-term planning, land use, zoning changes that unlocked a lot of activity. It does relate back
Todd,
to,
Todd,
Yep.
this is Bill. I'm going to interrupt you a second. Can you go back to that slide?
yes,
Just for the folks that are in town here, you may want to change the under Burlington, the capital city of Route 128. Burlington's a town, and we've mentioned this, I don't know, I've mentioned it a dozen times, that we're all referencing in Somerville and Cambridge. And everybody, I think, from a development standpoint, is thinking of us being a kind of a fringe city. Maybe from the folks here, at least from my personal point of view, maybe you could change that to the capital town.
will do.
So
Sure.
people are very clear that what that is.
Yeah, understood. And I'm just trying to give tenants in the market, this comes from a slide that we use with tenants.
Yeah,
The impression that there's a lot going on here, but I hear you and I'll change it.
thanks.
It does, the campus does relate right back to Northwest Park and all the stuff we've been doing on Third Ave. People do walk through that North Connector Road. It's a very brief 10-minute walk down to Wegmans, down to restaurants. And so all the things we've done at Third Ave relate back to this campus as well. You can see this just a view looking south of the Burlington Mall at the top of the screen, Route 3 up at the right. So chapter 1, I found this hysterical. This is, but it's real. These are tanks parked in front of Kent Cottage. So the first chapter in this campus was a defense contractor, RCA Lockheed Martin. Very heavy use of the land, and some of you might remember this. I don't remember this. This is before my time, but at Nordblom. But
I do, Todd. I actually sat in one of them. So
pretty cool photo, right? The next chapter, chapter 2, in 1997, Sun Microsystems came, and I was corrected. I thought it was the first PDD, but Bob corrected me. It was the second PDD, but really the largest PDD that had happened. And Sun Microsystems brought their East Coast technology campus to Burlington. This was a big deal at the time. They built out the first phase of this, over 800,000 feet, but it was a very closed campus. Visitors weren't welcome. It was a single tenant campus. And this is just a visual that I found just showing the sort of Sun Micro under construction. You can see the parking lots aren't even done at this point. Chapter 3, Nordblom Company somehow managed to acquire this from Sun Micro. Sun Micro was going down. We were able to acquire it with the town's help, frankly, political help. And then we very luckily, Oracle bought Sun, so we all were very lucky to get Oracle on the lease anchoring this campus. And we began our 10-year-long redevelopment into a multi-tenant campus. We brought a bunch of different companies in here. And it really is a pretty campus. It is the market leading campus in this part of the metropolitan Boston market. We get the highest rents in the market. When we bring tenants to the building, they like it and they ask for proposals. And we are out of space. I'll say that again later, but for various reasons, it just feels like a college campus. Many of you haven't been there recently. We can certainly do an open house for town meeting members to come up and see, but everything from golf simulators to outdoor spaces. We have community gardens, which is one of our most popular amenities. People actually come out during the day and they tend to their gardens. All kinds of fun reasons to come to work and reasons to create ways to create a good environment for people working in the building. We have a direct bus, near direct bus back to Alewife. There's a real Cambridge connection. We feel that more than ever. And then, of course, as I said, Third Ave, with all the stuff we've worked on together, all these things add up and they come to a tipping point where we have a really great mousetrap. When tenants come to the market, they notice the difference. I'll just put it that way. Chapter 4, that's where we are today. So we're out of space. There's 8 million square feet of demand in life science demand in the Metro Boston market. We are positioning more and more of Network Drive to capture that life science demand because, frankly, these tenants pay 2 or 3 times the net rent of an office tenant, and they bring fewer cars, and they bring enormous capital investment to the building, which is taxable from the town's point of view, but it also makes them very sticky as tenants. And so you have a very highly educated workforce, fewer cars, more capital investment, higher property valuations. Vericel, as I think most people on this call know, recently signed a lease for 125,000 feet at Network Drive. And we have another tenant coming out of Cambridge, as did Vericel, that has signed recently a letter of intent for 150,000 feet. That takes up the entirety of the building that we all permitted together, the science building where the star is at 25 Network Drive. And that's a more current rendering of the front door of one half of that building. So you get a sense for just that building, which is still in rendering format. We just ordered the steel last week, is 100% committed. So we're out of space again. And again, this is all being driven by the life science market. This is a drawing from the original PDD back in 2007, which had parcel 1 and parcel 2 under the zoning. What we're talking about amending is only parcel 1, so nothing would change on the parcel 2, which, as the boards know, we have a senior housing, daycare center, and a bank on that side of Network Drive. But on the southern side of Network Drive, we have what we call under the zoning parcel 1. And the big question I have for town meeting is whether or not we could please build some additional buildings, and as Bob said, 3 or 4 buildings in the parking lots inside this red line. In other words, we're not proposing to push any further into the green space on Route 3. We propose to utilize this campus has a master planned stormwater drainage system. This campus has master planned utilities, central plants. The idea would be to expand the economic activity on this campus by building buildings and structured parking garages in the parking lots shown on the screen. And that's the big question. How we get there and what changes we make to the zoning. We look forward to working through that with the various boards on the call and with the ZBRC in particular. But just remember that why is Todd here? Todd is here because he sees 8 million square feet of life science demand in the market. And we've got these really, it's a very low density campus. We're at a 0.25 FAR today. We're asking Bob, I think, to take it up to about a 0.33 FAR. By building new buildings in these parking lots. So if you look at the parking lots, these are building sites. What might that look like? We don't know. We need to work through that with the planning board and with the engineers. But the architect put down 3 buildings here. You can see C, B, and G, A, B, and C starting on the right, going left, and then G is an attempt to show a structured parking garage. I don't think these are the final locations. I can tell you right now, they're not the final locations for additional buildings, but it does show that 3 large buildings, which are the same size as the other buildings at Network Drive, could easily fit on the site. We could easily accommodate structured parking without, as I said, leaving the ring road, without leaving our canvas, as it were, to chop down any trees or create any more developed area. So that's the question that we will be asking town meeting in May. It's really just the ability to grow at this one location where we think the campus is set up well for it. We've got the land, it's infill, we've got the utilities in place. We won't be exceeding the current ring road of the campus. And as Bob said, there are a bunch of changes to definitions, which, frankly, I'm less concerned with. I think some of these requested changes are also coming through the staff because it's just difficult to track the changes to net square footage over time. It's easier to track gross square footage. So that, I think, is my presentation. And we can take questions.
Thank you, Fremont Smith, Mr. Fremont Smith. I appreciate that you were very timely in going through the 24 slides. So that's very much appreciated.
Thank you.
Let me go to first the zoning board review committee with Ms. Sherry Ellis as the chairman. Sherry, would you like to take it from here and have any comments with you or any members of your board?
Thanks, Bill. I don't have any questions. It was a good presentation, very thorough. Understand that. I certainly would open it up to any others, but we will be meeting on March 9th, and I think I've emailed Todd and Bob, and I'll let them know exactly when the agenda is. I don't have any questions at the moment, so I don't know if any of the others. I know that Ed Parsons is on a phone, one of the call-ins, but if anybody has any questions.
Okay, we'll take that as a no.
Oh, I see Sally's
Sally.
hand.
Somebody's got a hand up? Okay, Sally?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and Sherry and Todd and Bob. My question is, you're taking away a lot of parking. What is that going to impact the residents who are already there? And will you be creating, likely be creating structured parking for the existing buildings? Thank
Yes.
you.
Yes, we anticipate creating structured parking to support the additional buildings. I will say there's a much lower need for parking post-COVID. We don't know where that's going to settle out, but the life science buildings that we are specifically targeting tend to park, this will at about 2.0 per thousand, whereas a typical office building is more like 3.5. So they do require less parking, but by nature of putting these large buildings in existing parking lots, we'll have to replace that parking and then build additional parking with structured parking.
And just quickly, will that structured parking, is that in your in the image that you showed us?
There was one garage on the image, the little blue buildings that I showed you. One of them was a garage, yes, but we have not finalized those locations. We really need to do a lot more engineering with Frank and do a lot more work with the planning staff and the planning board to figure out where those buildings would want to go aesthetically and also from a parking distribution standpoint.
It would be safe to say, Sally, that if the maximum build out were to be achieved on the 3 buildings, that you would have to implement structured parking. The location and the coordination of that with the other users is yet to be determined.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Willard. I see a hand up here, but I don't know who that belongs to. Dave Van Camp, is he part of the 1 or 2 subcommittees that we're talking? Anybody know?
Not part of GRC, he's a town meeting member.
Okay, why don't we hold off Mr. Van Camp, and we're going to go to Mr. Webb, who's the chairman of the land use. Mr. Webb, if you or any of your members have any questions or comments.
Yeah, I have a couple. Following up on Sally's comment, it looks on the layout that there's a lot of existing parking that, as Todd said, is probably not being used and may not be utilized as much in the future because of the situation with people working off campus and so forth. And of course, with the new buildings you're talking about, that would reduce those parking areas. But there's still a lot of empty space there. It's parking, and I certainly would like to see a lot of that taken over as green space.
Mhm.
And even adding trees. You talk about not cutting down trees, well, let's add them. I think there's a lot of potential there. I think it would add greatly to the amenities of the campus, and I think you should seriously consider that. The other main comment I had was, again, along the ideas of climate change. Do you have any ideas or plans for either changing your existing utilities or the utilities for the new buildings away from gas to electric in some way, whether they're solar panels or that sort of thing? I'd like to hear a lot more of efforts to do that in town in general, but here's it looks like a perfect location for doing a lot of that and trying to adhere to the state's new requirements on climate change. So those are 2 main things I have that at least you can look at, and I think we would like to have you come to land use committee at some point in maybe March or April, depending,
Yep.
to discuss this with the rest of our group. Thank you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Ms. O'Brien is part of your
Right.
me too. So Pat, do you have any comments?
Yeah, thanks, Dave. I would just like to echo Dave's concerns about, yes, a good attempt at not intruding into more green space, but actually kind of reclaiming space. Also with climate change and building, and to be cognizant and in line with the current projects regarding the watershed, the Vinebrook aquifer, and the heat island effect, and how your organization can help mitigate and align and support those two projects that we have in town. And then just kind of a logistics question: if it gets approved and you move forward, do you envision building these all at the same time? Do you envision, because there is a demand, an immediate demand, what's kind of the time frame and outlook in terms of 1, 2, 3, 4 buildings in a garage structure?
Certainly not all at once, but we can try to lay that out for you more at the land use committee.
Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. O'Brien. Again, I did see Mr. Van Camp there. Again, you've indicated town meeting member. He's lowered his hand, but Mr. Van Camp, did you have any comments? I don't think there's a no for now, and we'll go to the planning board, folks. Let me see if I go, Mr. Spale, you want to start her off?
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Fremont Smith, for your presentation. My question kind of piggybacks on the last of the couple. Has there been any cumulative parking study done, Todd, since the pandemic started? Do you have any hard numbers on what you've seen with your parking, or is there any plans to take a hard look at the numbers before you jump into something like this?
We'll take a really hard look at it before we build any structured parking. Structured parking is extremely expensive. So we're not going to be incentivized to create more of it if we don't have a way to finance it. I can tell you that 1 million square foot campus at Network Drive remains essentially vacant. The office workers are still home. So we're hoping that in a very few weeks, as this thing starts to get under control and as the weather gets better and people start to come back to the office, we're going to start to see people going back to the office. Now, I do think what we do think is going to happen is people are going to come to the office fewer days per week, right? We don't know whether it's 3 days or 4 days. It feels like it's 3 days per week. It was what a lot of companies think is going to happen. We don't anticipate a lot of office space being given back, because when they do come in 3 days a week, they want to go to their office. But I think particularly on the parking, this is something we should all pay very close attention to. And I hear all the very excellent comments about parking and not generating more parking if we don't need it, and additional green space. So these are all things we can study together. But to answer your question, no, we have not been able to study it yet because no one's come back yet.
Okay, and a follow-up, have any of the new tenants like Vericel have any requirements for minimum amount of parking required when they sign their leases or anything? Do you have that,
They do. I don't have it in front of me, member Espejo, but they do. And this is not something that can be done. You can't do lab work from home, right? So these guys have to come to work. So they have put in their leases a minimum parking requirement, which is higher than we think they need, because as I said, most lab buildings are parked at 2 or 2.5. And most office buildings are parked at 3 or 3.5. But they are acting, in their leasing at least, they are acting like office tenants, and they're asking for above 3.0 parking per 1,000. So we'll just have to see how that plays out and what the market really needs.
Okay, thank you very much. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Spale. Any other members that want to comment on it? Ms. LaRue, Mr. Covino, please.
Yes, just a couple of comments. I think Todd, that this is a good opportunity to look at shared parking, because you have a kind of closed-in campus here. And I know that in many cases, Oracle, one that I can think of right off the top of my head, when they built that large parking garage, and we asked them, well, do you really need it? And they said, well, not really all the time. We probably need it, like 8 weeks a year or 4 weeks a year, or whatever it was. So, that was just one company. I think shared parking, maybe if you could do something when you renew your leases that gives them a space in the shared parking structure is where I'm thinking, because that would allow you to recover some green space. And as Oracle did, you might want to take a lead from them. If you do parking structures, a very good place to put some solar panels. And keep in the back of your mind that the planning board has before permitted parking, but also asked developers to keep it in reserve. So you could, in effect, have parking in your lease, but not have to, maybe, I don't know how you'd arrange that with your tenants, but.
No, it's
not
called
have to
shadow
build it.
parking. It's called shadow
Shadow
parking, and
Okay.
we can
Yep.
consider that. That's a good idea. Yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah.
I'm good. Thanks, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. And Mr. Louis, you're going to take a pass on this one, Barbara?
I'm all set. Ernie asked my question. Thanks, Ernie.
Thank you very much. Mr. Impemba?
Thanks, Mr. Chairman. I just wanted to add, the parking, obviously those questions have been asked, and I do believe that before they go in there, they're gonna make, the company's gonna make sure they have sufficient parking for what their needs are gonna be. But I do want to take the opportunity to say that this, if, where we've been going out to get this type of life science use, and we've been scattering around town, if you were to ask me as a planner, where I would like to see this type of a life science campus, this is probably the ideal location and the ideal campus for that type of use. So I would encourage, I think it's a phenomenal use down there, and I think it's a great location, and I think it's an area where, they can continue to grow down there and thrive, because the life sciences all like to be together, and this is a beautiful out of the way campus. And so I think it's a great planning opportunity for us to be able to bring in some real nice high-end life science into the town, and have them in a location where they can benefit each other, and it's easy access to the highway. It's not really bringing the traffic in. So I think it's an ideal situation for that location. So that's kind of my 2 cents on it. And like I said, I'm sure with the parking piece of it, these life science buildings, and they're not gonna, these users are not gonna go in there if they're not gonna be able to accommodate the parking, I'm sure. So I'm sure they will accommodate the parking however they need to.
Great. Thank you, Mr.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Impemba.
Yep.
Member Raymond, any comments?
Yes, no, one thing I think that's interesting, I see that we have another restaurant is going to locate in that area. And I consider that whole Northwest Park kind of you had a dream and this is what you've got. I consider that the signature park, really. And I think a lot of people do along Route 128 and outside of Boston as people move out. And the fact that the life science people want to come out here, I think is further confirmation of our vision. And we're certainly going to do anything we can if they need accommodations that are acceptable to us. Come on in and we'll work with you. We want you here. Thanks. That's all I want to say.
Thank you, Member Raymond. I would just comment, one thing that is near and dear to my heart with many years on the Board of Appeals is your request for a change to amend signage. I know that you had come before us and you had asked for a large billboard for a video screen on Route 3. So I'd like to just get a sense of what you're thinking with regard to your modification of your signage zoning.
Yeah, that was a fairly hyperactive moment I had asking for a billboard. We're not asking for that. What I've heard, although I'd still like to do it, but what I've heard from our management team is that tenants, they want to put their name on the building. So this just relates to, I believe, wall signage, Bob, is all we attempted to modify.
That is correct. It's just wall signage. Yep.
Yep.
We can probably get some details on that if
Yes.
you don't mind.
Yep.
Thank you.
Yes, we will.
Okay, I think that's what I had. So is there anybody in the audience that would like to speak on this matter? Look for hands anywhere. There's one. There's Mr. Van Camp. Mr. Van Camp, please introduce yourself. you know if Mr. Van Camp is muted? Anybody can see that?
He's not muted, but we can't hear him. You
Okay.
should check to see if his mute on his computer might be on. That's usually the case.
Okay,
Not
Mm.
not the WebEx, but the computer mute.
give him a minute. If, Mr. Van Camp, if you want to chat, put something in the chat box. That's an alternative, if you can hear us.
Mr. Chairman, as we're waiting for Mr. Van Camp, can I ask Mr. Webb a question? David, can we coordinate with you to set up a meeting sooner rather than later? Because there's a lot to be discussed. And while May sounds like a long time away, it really isn't. So if we could at least start having discussions with land use, that would be very beneficial.
Yes, we haven't set our date for our next meeting, but probably sometime in March. So that would be
Great.
a good idea for this and maybe the following
Yeah.
persons coming in to talk to us. Yes.
Yeah, and I think you have my contact information, but if not, I'll send you how to get in touch with me.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, David. Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you, Mr. Buckley. Okay, we'll give Mr. Van Camp one more chance to see if he can unmute himself, or he wants to put something in the chat. Here it is, right here. Is this, Liz, can you tell me what we got here?
Sure. So, and then, so I just wrote, if Mr. Van Camp wants, he can call in using the number, but he also, his question was that, he's worried about transportation, getting to the park. He's worried about, I think his worry is that traffic will increase.
Mhm.
So I guess if you can address that, I hope that's what he was asking. Right.
Yep. Well, thank you, Mr. Van Camp. Yeah, I think that's on everyone's minds here. I know as I got elected here, one of the main things my focus was traffic, and not only increase in traffic, but kind of a reduction, and to have the facilities in place before we put up 3 more buildings to understand how we can mitigate additional traffic that will be that will happen because of new buildings that were popping up here all over the place. So, thank you for that, and that will put that certainly that'll be one of the items discussed. Anything else, Mr. Van Camp, if you want to chat in there, or if you're all set, you can lower your hand. Okay, thank you. All right, anyone else? Do you see anybody else on there speaking on the subject? If not, do I have a motion? Any motion?
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of March 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Okay, motion's in second. Do we have to roll call that?
Yes, we do. Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
And then as far as land use and ZBRC,
The public hearing's only with the planning board, so you only have to roll call the planning board to continue
Okay.
their meeting. So
Great.
awesome.
I just wanted to introduce roll call with the rest of the boards. So thank you.
Thank you. Okay.
Thank you for your time, everyone. And I think I echo Todd when I say we look forward to making Chapter 4 as successful as the first 3 chapters. So a number of years from now, when someone goes with Chapter 5, they'll say, what a great project. Thank
Okay.
you.
Thank you, Attorney Buckley.
Thank you very much.
We have, yep.
Mr.
Thank you.
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 1B through 1C together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Okay, thank you. Motion is second. It's a public hearing, petition to amend the zoning bylaw, Article 3 districts, Article 4 use regulations, and Article 8 overlay districts 8.5.0 town center to create a new zoning district, town center multifamily, TCM, submitted by Voaya Real Estate Ventures LLC. And then
Kristen,
item C, oops,
do we need to roll call, Kristen?
To take it together, yes, you do.
let's take it together. Okay, yep.
Sorry about that.
Sorry,
Can I do that?
guys. Back again. Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Carry on, Bill. I'm sorry for the
Thank you.
interruption.
All right. So I'm going to go to 1C, and that's a public hearing to petition to rezone to the Town Center Multifamily TCM District, 135, 137, 137R, 139A, 139 Cambridge Street, submitted by Novaya Real Estate Ventures LLC. All right, who do we have here on behalf of this particular application?
Good evening, Chairman Gaffney, Madam Chair Ellis, and Chairman Webb, and your respective board members. Pleased to be before you. It's Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein, representing Novaya Real Estate Ventures this evening. And we too are going to try to be brief in terms of limiting the presentation to the same amount of time as the prior one. I know you got a tight schedule, but pleased to be before you representing Novaya for the proposed zoning bylaw article that's been submitted for the property involved at 135 to 139 Cambridge Street. So we had a brief PowerPoint. I don't know if that you could screen share with Steph from, yeah, there we go. All right. So if I could just briefly walk through this, and I'm going to turn it over to a couple of folks in a moment here, but in the interest of time, why don't I start? But we're here to talk about a zoning bylaw change that would allow for a proposed redevelopment of property along Cambridge Street for mixed use condominium and retail. Next slide. This is our project team. I'm not going to give a detailed summary of everyone here. That'll lead up all of our time, but suffice it to say, Novaya Real Estate Ventures, Peter Carbone and Carl Trieschman are the two principals, and also working with Scott Seaver and Jeffrey Feldman as part of the overall development team. And we have a pretty capable and well-regarded team of consultants as well, landscape architect, our architect, Cube 3 as well, that has a lot of experience in town, wetlands, civil, myself and Melissa from our office, and obviously a traffic engineer involved as well. So we're not going to be presenting tonight in great detail, but just want to let you know we have folks here. So the site in question, I think, as everyone probably is aware, is on the westerly side of Cambridge Street. And it consists of a little bit over 3 acres in total size. It's that orange square parcel that's depicted on that map, and you can see it's in close proximity to the Bedford Street, Cambridge Street signalized intersection. And next slide is just a more close-up version of the properties that we're talking about here. It's commonly known as the Rogers Piano site on the bottom portion of that highlighted area. I think Sears had a facility in there a long time ago as well, if memory serves me.
Yep.
And there's kind of a long kind of serpentine building that's located out at the front as well. And the other portion of the property involved here involves some single family property on the northerly side of this locus. 2 of the properties are vacant, and one is presently single family home. Property lies immediately north of KinderCare, just for purposes of identification. So if you go to the next slide, and again, this is probably a better sense of what you see when you drive by, rather than the bird's eye, which you probably don't see. But this, again, shows you the kind of expansive pavement that's there today. And again, you see the Rogers Piano building sitting in the back rear portion of the building, and a representation of what you see if you're traveling along Cambridge Street. So next slide. So just from a zoning perspective, I wanted to mention and remind everyone, I think, as you all know, the property is in the town overlay. It is the starred piece there that you can see towards the bottom portion of the screen. This map represents the town center overlay with the 2 different existing sub-districts, that being the central business, which is in orange, and the civic center district, which is in purple. I think as the board and other town meeting members and others involved on the different committees here tonight are aware, town center overlay was established in 2006. Those 2 sub-districts were created. Multifamily was initially allowed as of right when the town center overlay was created in 2006. However, in 2010, multifamily was rescinded. My recollection of what happened at the time is that when it was initially allowed in 2006, There was a cap set in terms of the total amount of square footage that could be built as a percentage to total building area in the totality of the town center. And as what might be expected, I think what happened is everyone kind of rushed in at the outset in order to do multifamily, and that resulted in town meeting feeling that it was a time to put a hold on that. And that's what happened in 2010. So next slide, please. The proposal that we've presented, and we'll provide some more detail on it, is basically to establish a new town center multifamily sub-district that would allow for multifamily to be done in very limited instances where the town meeting body and other town officials felt that that was appropriate to do in that instance. So it is, rather than allowing this across the entirety of the town center overlay, after discussions with planning staff, we thought the better approach would be to allow for you and town meeting to determine where it would be appropriate. So initially, only this project site would be included in that multifamily sub-district. And just to be clear, if the zoning amendment were to pass, it would not allow for multifamily elsewhere in the town center, only at this location. The town center multifamily sub-district could only be overlaid on a parcel in the central business district by act of town meeting. So again, we feel that this gives the town ultimate control in terms of where it may want to see multifamily. And then the last bullet there, the existing town center overlay design standards would continue to apply, and other presently allowed commercial uses would continue to be allowed in order to allow for mixed use development. I think those 2 points are very important, and I think as you'll about to see through some of the visuals we'll share, a lot of attention has been paid to satisfying the design standards of the town center to make sure that any proposal put forth is sympathetic to that. And also we are talking about having a mixture of use here as well to provide for mixed use. So at this point, what I'd like to do is turn it over to Peter Carboni with Novaya to just maybe walk through in a little bit more detail some information about what's being considered.
Thanks, Mark. For the record, Peter Carboni with Novaya Real Estate Ventures. It's good to be back sort of in front of Burlington despite the virtual meeting. I wish we could get in front of everybody, but hopefully in due course, that'll happen. It's great to see some of the faces. I know as many of you or some of you know, I was a practicing attorney in Burlington for about 10 years. Mark and I pretty much started together at Reamer, together with working with Bob Buckley and Harold Dulong. I know a lot of you know Harold. So it's great to be looking at something, in the town and to see so many friendly faces from before. I'm going to be really quick because I think we want to get through the slides more than talking. I want to show you guys. We were approached literally just about 45 days with taking a look at the site because a prior developer was looking at this, and they were looking at it in the nature of doing apartments. And frankly, I think the town was looking at it and saying, we think something along the lines of home ownership would be much more well received, especially where discretionary, where permits are going to be required through town meeting or town meeting vote, and then additional, underlying permits, that it would be better to go that route. So that's the route that we would be going if this gets approved, is a condominium home ownership project. It's about 98 units. To compare to that, I won't spend a lot of time comparing to the prior project because some of you might have heard about it but don't know the details. But I think in conversations with Kristen and others in the town, we've tried to minimize or reduce down the scale of the project considerably over what was previously proposed, which we'll go through. I think the takeaways, what I want to leave you, I want to start with and come back with, are like when I was practicing, a real willingness and desire to want to work with everybody in the town to design the best possible project we can come up with together. This is going to be a little bit of a gateway into the town common. So I think it's a tremendous transitional use as you go from some of the commercial uses up and down Cambridge Road to some of the residential that sits behind us, behind the town center. It's a great place to do a mixed use building, and you see we have some mixed use planned within the building. Affordability we will be hitting the affordability requirements of the bylaw. It's a formula, but I think it's somewhere around 15 units or 15%. But it'll be home ownership. It'll be affordable. It's going to be great design. And I think it's going to fit in very well with the fabric, of the community. And we're still working on, we've only been able to work on the design for about 30 days. So we're going to continue to be tweaking, taking comments, heavily focusing on things like landscaping, traffic, all that. So that said, I'm going to leave it to Stephanie to maybe run through some slides so that you can see the images, and then we'll come back to any questions because I know time's getting brief. So Steph, why don't you go through some of the architecturals?
Awesome. Thanks, Peter. I'm Steph Thiel from Cube 3, so I'll run through quickly some more of the details of the proposed project. If you could go to the next slide. One more. Thank you. Okay, so overall, this is the site plan. We're looking at a 3-story on grade along Cambridge Street on the right and a 3-over podium along the back for that backward C shape that you see for a total of 4 stories in the back. That's giving us a total of 98 units, as Peter mentioned. The 3 on grade along Cambridge Street there wraps a lush wetland planting area and a courtyard that breaks up the frontage and keeps a respectful neighborhood datum and scale, as well as a pitched roof that coheres with the design guidelines. Our 2-prong frontage sets back with balconies as well from Cambridge Street with a nice large tree buffer along to break it up further. Our main entry along Cambridge Street is planned south at that lower leg, where we also have retail and a pickup drop off for the residents that connects to the main amenity space. The back C shape is a 3/1, as mentioned before, with that total of 4 floors that wraps a residential courtyard that lies above a podium parking. The rear roof line is flat to keep a 45 height max to respect that neighborhood scale in the back, as mentioned before. Entry to the podium is in the back of the site, along with surface parking and tree buffer area to give a nice 60-foot setback from the rear abutting neighborhood. If you go to the next slide, this is the ground floor plan. Here you can see that covered single podium parking at the rear of the site with the 2 entries. We applied the surface parking in the rear again to reduce that project massing abutting homes, which includes landscaping and fencing to further buffer from the residential neighborhood. And again, highlighting the accounted retail area on the bottom right leg with retail parking at main entry that is adjacent to the Cambridge Street entry and a nice outdoor area. If you go to the second floor, this is a look at the second floor and typical residential layout that wraps that raised residential courtyard. This residential courtyard is the top of the podium parking that provides open space and shields the parking structure from the neighborhood abutter. And again, making sure that we have that substantial setback and additional green buffer along the back. The next few slides, we look at the context. We quickly had a study of the relative heights of the local context. We made deliberate decisions to work with the design guidelines provided and make sure we are complementing the neighborhood, especially within the height limits, but as well as in scale and materiality. Keeping under or within the surrounding building heights, as well as frontage, as you can see, 245 Cambridge Street. The next slide, a more closer abutting neighbor, 131 Cambridge Street, 45-foot max, as well as our height max is 45 feet with a median height of 38 feet. And the pitch roof and setbacks bring a more residential feel to the Cambridge Street frontage. You can go to the next slide. And this was the existing building. Again, we are still trying to keep that neighborhood scale and have that additional setback at that 3rd floor to bring it down to more of a pedestrian friendly scale at 22 feet. Go to the next slide. This is a before and after comparison. You can see this more clearly in this before and after comparison of existing conditions and proposed conditions here at the intersection north of Cambridge Street. We're keeping that respect to this neighborhood datum and roof lines within its context here. So that wraps it up for architecture. So I'll give it up to Jeff now.
I think that before you do that, I think just looking at that last slide, I think as you toggle back and forth on this, you can see what this slide is the building actually there in the background. So the slide before it, no building, and then this one shows what the view would be. So I think we just want that, that's existing. And then with the building proposed, because it's going to be set back and stepping back, that's what you would see. So just wanted to emphasize that. I think Jeff's going to take us through some of the last benefits from the project. So please go ahead.
I don't know if you guys want to just toggle to that benefits slide. All right, thanks, Stephanie. I'm Jeff Feldman, Principal of Route Development. As Mark mentioned, I'll be working with Novaya on the development of the project. I'd like to take just a couple of minutes to highlight a few of the project's key benefits. In addition to a project that will be designed in harmony with the design guidelines for the town center overlay, the project would bring several other benefits to Burlington. Firstly, the intended use is in keeping with the principles of Burlington's master plan, which encourages project with strong walkability characteristics, particularly near the town center and transit options. To that point, the project site is at the edge of the town common and would certainly increase the walkability of Burlington's civic resources. Relative to transit, the project site is within a quarter mile of 4 bus stops, so adding the right amount of residential density within proximity to public transportation would be very much in keeping with the principles of smart growth. Another stated objective of the master plan is to expand the range of housing options for young people and seniors. It was noted in the master plan that 86% of all of the housing units in Burlington are either single-family homes or large for-rent apartment buildings. Because we are proposing smaller flat-style homes, the project would be creating more housing options for both seniors looking to downsize and first-time home buyers. An additional project benefit is that there would be a substantial increase in Burlington's annual gross real estate tax revenue. Calculated on 2022 assessed values, the existing properties are estimated to generate approximately $72,000 in annual real estate taxes. Based on our preliminary estimates, the proposed project could generate gross annual real estate taxes of approximately $630,000, an increase of over $500,000 annually. The project would also increase the number of affordable homes in Burlington. As per the town's inclusionary housing policy, 15 of the project's homes would be affordable and would have price limits set by the Commonwealth's Department of Housing and Community Development. The final benefit we wanted to note is that our initial traffic study by Vanessa and Associates indicated that the vehicle trips generated by the project are expected to be modest and not result in a material increase in motorist delays or queuing on Cambridge Street. The engineer also indicated that the existing roadway infrastructure and planned ingress and egress has sufficient capacity to accommodate the project in a safe and efficient manner. So those are some of the primary benefits of the project we wanted to highlight, and I think also wraps up our presentation for the evening. We look forward to your questions.
Thank you. Appreciate it. And I appreciate again the way you went through the presentation in a fairly rapid fashion. I again will go over to our subcommittees here that are currently in residence. And Mr. Webb, I'd like to start off with land use, to be fair.
Okay, yeah, I don't,
I can go somewhere else if you'd like.
no, that's all right. Yeah, I just have a couple questions. This looks interesting and a nice use of that site, which right now is not a whole lot. You said now there are like 3 housing structures there, 2 of which are empty. Is that correct?
Yeah, there's one, I believe there's 2 vacant houses, and then one is occupied by one of the neighbors that's currently there in the back. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, I guess, let's see. So one question is the setback from Cambridge Street. You know, the 2 buildings, the 2 other buildings you showed, apartments that exist on Cambridge Street, one quite close, I guess, just north of this project, to me are much too close to the street, and they're very high and they sort of dominate the view from as you drive by. Never have liked that, the way they were constructed that way. I like the idea that you're setting back at least the upper floor on your property, but I wonder whether even the lower floors could be set back a little bit more. I think that'd be one thing I'd like to see. Another thing is the parking. I guess the parking is mainly in back, and you showed surface parking spaces, and then you had structured parking or parking garage. of a couple floors, I believe, right?
Just one floor.
Just one.
One floor. Okay, that wasn't clear.
Sure.
Okay. Why only one floor? So you have you have condo units above that, is that correct?
Yeah, so
Okay.
this is a typical podium kind of construction, Mr. Webb. So most people, especially they're going to be buying these condos, would love to have a covered space. So drive in, get out of the
Sure.
weather, don't have to deal with snow and ice anymore, all that kind of stuff with a direct access by elevator up to their floor. This will be single floor living. So everybody can go right upstairs. If going down another level would be extremely expensive and probably
Right.
not needed because of we do have some land area around it. Basically we've done this at about a one parking space per bedroom. We'll probably end up somewhere around 2/3, 2 bedrooms, and then the rest ones, somewhere in that range. This could be as high as 70-30. We think in the suburbs, especially what's going on nowadays with everybody working from home and being home, that even if it's just a couple, having that second bedroom, whether to work out of or whatever, is vitally important in the suburbs. Even less one bedrooms is going to be better, but the parking is based mostly on about a one space per bedroom. So if you have a 2 bedroom unit, you'll likely get 2 spaces, and then there's some additional for some of the retail and accessory uses outside. But it is one. It does fit one level of parking, and then above that would be that green space. It creates a beautiful green space for people that are going to directly enter on there. They'll have some private space on that deck that'll be landscaped. And so when you're looking at it from a bird's eye, even from the rear neighborhood, you'll really see the green space that's on top of that deck. It won't just be a concrete structure.
Yeah, green space is good. You'll hear that a lot from us. Less parking is better.
Yep.
And more green space, so that's always a goal here. Of course, this is mostly most of the footprint of this construction looks like it's in the condos themselves. So the outside parking isn't too big an area, but it's always good to reduce that as much as possible.
Sure.
The only other question I had was the 15% affordable apartments. It's a big issue in town is affordable apartments and senior housing. And so I'm wondering if that 15% affordable housing could be even increased to 20% or something like that. And is that at all possible, or is that not economically feasible for you?
The short answer is it's going to be very difficult to increase over and above that, especially with what's going on with construction pricing right now. Because as everybody I'm sure knows, construction pricing has increased 10 to 15% per year over the last 3-4 years, and it's not going to go down. Supply chain problems that we're having. I think it's going to be very tough to get more than the 15. I wouldn't want to give anybody the impression that I could say, oh yeah, we can do that. I think it's going to be tough to have more than that amount, just candidly.
Okay, thank you. Pat, do you have anything?
Thank you. I really like the podium with the green
Yeah.
space above it. That's really kind of an advanced concept in Burlington. So thank you for introducing it and implementing it. I would like to see more details on that traffic study. I was a patron of the KinderCare, and that coming in and out was always problematic. So that I have a hard time visualizing based on the graphics. So understanding more about that would be important. More information as well about what kind of systems that you're going to use in the construction in terms of addressing sustainability issues and climate change. And then there's I don't know what this category of housing is called, but micro units. Have you explored developing micro units in there or more common spaces to increase occupancy? Because I think that multifamily and multi-unit housing and ownership is important in Burlington, and access to public transportation really helps address some of the issues we're concerned about. Thank you.
All great questions, and all where I can touch on now, and then we can dig into these even more as we go. I think on the sustainability, there's a chance that with a building like this that we could go almost all electric with our HVAC type because of the way these will be likely individual split units for each of the units, heating and air conditioning. I'm not going to go so far yet as to say there will be no carbon gas or some other. I don't know the answer to that yet, but it's a huge issue in our industry right now that we're looking at that across we do a lot of office, industrial, residential. We're looking at across all product types, resiliency and sustainability. So we'll continue to do that, including in materials that, that go into the building. The small units, we don't think in the suburbs that's necessarily going to play very well. There's actually a lot, even as you turn to Boston. You know what? I think I'm going to have Carl talk about this. Carl Treishman, who's my partner. Carl has been doing residential for a long time. And Carl, why don't you speak a little bit to the unit sizes and the micro concept?
Sure. The micro concept is actually was tested pretty severely by the pandemic, as a lot of people felt very isolated in smaller units in the more urban areas and looked to leave urban areas specifically for suburban space where they had more shared common areas, or where they could even find work from home areas that they could almost self-isolate in. And we call it being alone together, where, when you have common work areas and things. The biggest change here is there was a project of nearly twice the size that was a rental project. And rental projects have focused on smaller units because it was an affordability issue as well. This has been changed to an ownership project. And in home ownership, you'll get a lot of self-selection by unit size. Anytime you have a 100 unit this is programmed as just about 100 units, you get numerous types of cohort looking at the building to live there. It could be empty nesters, but it could also be young couples or singles. And so they will not be able to move they will not be able to live in a suburban lifestyle in a unit that's much smaller than a one bedroom den or one bedroom. There's actually not nearly as healthy a market for one bedroom condominiums in the suburbs as there is for one plus something, a two bedroom, a one plus a study. So, a lot of this will be market driven in the home ownership space, which is something we were trying to address in that area.
Thank you. Thank you. Mr. Webb, anyone else from your subcommittee you see there?
No, that's all I see. Thank you.
All right, we'll go to the Ms. Sherry's ZBRC. Sherry, if you want to kick it off.
Thank you. Appreciate it. I do have some questions, some concerns that we certainly won't address tonight, but and I think some of my questions and concerns are more for our staff, the planning staff. The one thing that was new to me that you presented tonight was talking about the residential component of the town center overlay. And obviously there's been conversations between the proponent and our staff, but one question to not necessarily answer tonight, we don't have a lot of time tonight, but why was it not considered to reopen and change the bylaw to allow for residential in the town center overlay again versus creating a whole new district, the multifamily district? And I have some concerns and questions about the multifamily district and how this relates to the new state regulations and how this would either benefit us as a town, it's such a new concept, or how this would not really help us at all with that particular regulation and those particular regulations that we're going to have to adhere to. And really more about how this is such a small parcel. So how this really isn't becoming kind of like a spot zoning kind of thing. So those are just things to think about going forward. I don't necessarily want answers tonight because that's a long involved conversation, which we'll look forward to at the next planning board meeting. And again, ZBRC will meet on March 9th. So mark that on your calendars and we welcome conversations then. So those are my thoughts and concerns. And I will pass it on. I think I see Sally has a hand.
Yep.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and Chairman Ellis. I have a question that is related to something that Sherry mentioned, And I wonder if you can tell me how many apartments there will be by the and the number of bedrooms. And you mentioned, empty nesters and first-time home buyers. I'm wondering if that means that this is not going to be, as they say, family friendly with children, because that's all plays into the new DHCD regulations. So you don't need to give me specifics now, but if you have estimates, that would be great. Otherwise, we'll see you at the ZBRC meeting.
So, Ms. Willett, thank you. Could you explain a little bit for me, just what you mentioned with that acronym? I didn't quite understand it.
Oh, Department of Housing and Community Development.
Okay.
It's a state, there's some new guidelines
Mhm.
that specify how many multifamily units each town must have if we're to be an MBTA community.
Okay.
And that means that they have to be child friendly.
Okay. And then we have the whole thing that goes along with the schools and everything like that along that route too, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you. Thank you, Sally. And you have, Sherry, you have other people on your team here? They want to speak?
If anybody from ZBRC wants, I don't see any other hands, but if anybody wants, oh, Mark?
Mark?
Nope, he says he's okay. He's
Okay, Mark's
putting his hand
okay.
down. All right.
And Ed and Tamara?
I'm good. I'm happy to wait until our next meeting. Thank you.
Thank you very much. Okay, we have a couple other people with hands raised. I see Mr. Eiler with your hand raised.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Of course.
Yeah, I have potentially a different viewpoint on this from what I've been hearing. I guess the things, certainly things I like. I think the ownership model is good to have people have skin in the game, and it is certainly a nice looking design. So I think you've done a good job there. I guess what I'm questioning overall is what is our goal here in Burlington? If the goal is that to just have more housing, I don't think that's a good one, because I don't think we particularly have a shortage. And I think we do have some resource strain issues already that we need to deal with. If our goal is to provide more affordable housing, I think we're probably at a good point on that also, that with our, hitting above our 10% minimum target there, I think we're at a reasonable place in terms of providing reasonable, affordable housing while, being able to afford things. And if our goal is to, rezone every time, a commercial property has an issue, I don't think we want to be shifting over from, commercial to residential zoning to address that all the time. I don't think that's a good strategy. And finally, I guess, just looking at the tax situation, I just want to make sure that we look at that properly. It was described as potentially a net increase of $560K in taxes, which would be roughly $5.6K per unit. If there were even as few as one child per every 3 units, that extra 16K or so would be entirely used up by the additional costs of schooling, which is over 16K per student in Burlington. So it would be a net loss in terms of taxes, assuming there's any degree of children in the units here. So I'm not, the thing I always look at with these zoning and planning board issues is, what problem are we really trying to solve here? And it's not clear to me that this is solving any particular issue that makes sense to me. So I would ask you to just think about that. I think in general, creating more high density housing in Burlington isn't addressing real needs that we have. And it does create real issues with requiring more resources. We just saw last night town meeting, we're rebuilding an elementary school for $40 million. So, these resources aren't cheap, obviously, and, schools are just one resource of many. So I just wanted to provide that opposing viewpoint to consider. Thanks for your time.
Thank you, Mr. Al. And what I forgot to do is to have you introduce yourself.
Oh, I'm sorry, John Eiler, town meeting member, precinct 6.
Thank you very much. And I do see a hand up for a Ms. Foster. If you could introduce yourself. Ms. Foster, you have the floor.
Sure. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay. My name is Melissa Foster. I'm actually a resident. Is it okay that I speak now or?
Yep, go ahead.
Okay. I live at 141 Cambridge Street, so
Mhm.
I am very familiar with the area. My picture was actually like I live in the condo complex.
Mhm.
It was built in 2010. If I know my history correctly, which some of you probably know it better than I do, there was a house here that was moved, and there were 8 units that were built in
I remember it.
2010.
I remember when it was moved.
Yeah, I heard it was a big town event. They moved it down the hill.
Yeah.
I was the first owner. It was my first time purchasing a house in 2010, and I've lived here. It'll be 12 years. Great town. I love it. I love my location. We have a little daughter. We do stuff with the rec center. We walk to town. It's a very busy area. So and we're very familiar with it. There are the condos here, and then on the other side of the kinder care, there's also the ones right on the street, those condos there as well. So there, I know we're in an overlay. There are residents. I do have some concerns, as it will be in my basically backyard. Seeing what happened in the Building 19 area with all of that empty retail space. Nobody's brought that up. That's been, around for a while, and it's all these empty storefronts. That's kind of a concern. When they talk about putting retail space, with 98 units, that's great, but are they going to be able to fill them when we already have all these empty retail spots in town? And, affordable housing, that's great, but I'm not really sure, what is meant by affordable housing. So that's also a concern of mine. And, when public transportation is brought up, it's a great point, but I know with COVID and stuff, a lot of the routes and stuff have been cut back. Like I have a friend that used to take the bus to Boston, and I think those were cut. So, I wouldn't want to give, new residents all this false knowledge. Oh, you have access to buses, and, I don't really know that those are all running anymore. I know,
Yeah, the 352 got canceled, I think, straight into State Street, but you've still
yeah,
got
that was the one that went down 93, I
the
believe.
354 and the 350 still go into Alewife, I think.
Yeah, and also, traffic is definitely a concern. I work from home now, and I hear the accidents and I'm set back on Cambridge Street a little bit, but I'm not right in the front. But I hear, the police and the fire, and it's a very busy area, and I think it would just add a lot of traffic to the area. I'm trying to think of other.
Okay, well, we'll continue this in case you think of other things that you can
Yeah.
can have you back, and so no rush on that. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Foster. I appreciate your input. So we'll go to the board, and we'll go in kind of reverse order, but I see Mr. Impemba with your hand raised. Joe?
I'm sorry, I was on mute there for a
Yep,
second.
you can hear you.
I'd be happy to talk, or Barbara, I think, had her hand raised as well prior to that, but it's fully up to you.
Yeah, go ahead, Mr. Impemba. She got the early jump on it last time. I'm
Okay.
gonna rotate around a little bit.
Thank you. So one of the things we need to keep in mind here is the fact that we want this site redeveloped, right? So it's got to be a viable site, or else our downtown is not going to be viable.
Right.
So it's a site that we had mandates on the existing owner to redevelop or redo that front building. And I think we've actually passed the timeframes, but she financially wasn't able to do it, and we weren't going, given a hardship, we weren't going to enforce that.
Right.
the reality is it's going to be redeveloped. So that's not, there's no getting around that. So whether it gets redeveloped as a fully retail area or it gets redeveloped as a hybrid or, you know, a mixed use like the one being proposed, which I happen to think is a better use. You know, the only thing I'd like to see is maybe the two front areas, not instead of one front, having the two front as a retail, you know, whether it's a storefront or whether it ends up being a, you know, a real estate office or a, you know, insurance agency or a law office or some sort of a professional office like that. That's another, you know, question of what it could be, what it couldn't be. But the fact is, it's going to get redeveloped. So there's going to be traffic coming off of that site that doesn't currently come off of that site. And we want that. We don't want necessarily more traffic, but we want that site to be developed. The things that I would, you know, as I think actually the two last speakers actually said it perfectly. One of them saying they didn't want any more traffic, which I understand. And, you know, Mr. Eiler saying he doesn't necessarily want any, you know, he doesn't want any more, you know, housing, I guess, in the unit. And, you know, her saying she didn't want house. The bottom line is we need to have something that's going to work. So, you know, unfortunately, I think some of these, you know, I guess Ms. Foster had pointed out that there's a lot of vacancy over in the Building 19 site. Well, that tells you one thing, that, you know, it most likely is not viable to put all retail in this site, right? So, and it's probably not viable to put all residential in that site. So I think the reality is the best use there is going to be a mixed use of some sort. The things I would like to see looked at or potentially addressed, I want to start out by saying I really appreciate the fact that this applicant actually, unlike other ones, actually, I think read our overlay guidelines, because they came in with something that's pretty compliant already. I mean, you know, it can be tweaked a little bit here and there, but it's fairly compliant to our overlay, which I think they should be commended for, because you know, I don't think we've had a single applicant come in at first shot that actually complied with the overlay. That being said, the things I would like to see, and I had mentioned early on a couple of times with this thing, is, you know, is there a possibility of getting a road that goes behind, instead of, you know, ingress and egress onto Cambridge Street directly from the site? Is there a possibility of having a road go behind the buildings and behind all of at the lights where the high school is? Because that would bring everything out at a signaled intersection. It would prevent a lot of traffic, which, you know, traffic coming out onto 3A, which I think was alluded to by all the speakers here, is that, you know, would rather not see more traffic coming out with more curb cuts and things like that, you know, than we have to. That would be one of the things I'd like to look at. Another thing is, it's a fairly good sized project. I'm wondering with the possibility of, you know, maybe a contribution to underground utilities out there, combined with the town, maybe, you know, looking at grants from the state to see if maybe during this process, there's a possibility of somehow going underground with all of those telephone poles, which right now are really unsightly. And I think the whole stretch of the downtown, ultimately, we want to have underground. I'm just wondering if there's a possibility of even looking at that at this point in time. I know it's an expensive proposition, and it's probably not something that, you know, could be accommodated by an individual project, but, you know, it may be an opportunity for us to look at the state to see if there's possibly any contribution that we could get from the state to get that underground. One of the other items, and these are just bullet form thing, you know, I'm not going into any detail, but another bullet form is, I think it's, as I said, it's a large enough project in the downtown that I'm wondering if we could have a subcommittee of some sort working on this thing on a fairly regular basis. You know, we're built, you know, we had that 3A committee that was pretty active for a while and now is no longer. You know, either put that back together, or a subcommittee of, you know, the land use, the zoning and planning board, having a couple of members on it, and then, you know, maybe something that we could work on a regular basis to get, kind of to get the timeline squeezed into this to see if it's gonna be viable, it's not gonna be viable, and if it is, then, the applicants are gonna know early on. But I think it's gonna require a lot of work. This is a good start, but it's gonna require a lot of work. I know there's some wetlands in there. Looks like they've done a good job of, working with the existing wetlands on the site. I think there's also there was some contamination that I believe was cleaned up. And I think that's being addressed through this whole project. Some ongoing restrictions on that site. I think for now, that's kind of my 2 cents. I really like the way it's looking. And I think it's gonna, as far as that, it's gonna be an easy project to kind of work with, to really tweak a little bit and bring it into a thing. But I think we envisioned originally just retail up and down 3A. And I think we're starting to realize that, there's only so much retail can be viable without additional residential units in the downtown, some ready-made users. And I think we put, as I said, early on, a few years after the overlay was put into place, the town, in their wisdom, put an end to any of the residential development down there. And I think we're now starting to realize that, regardless of what our needs within the town are, we absolutely need some further residential redevelop or development in the downtown to just make that downtown retail a viable place to be, and a very, a vibrant place to be, I should say. So those are my thoughts. And I know it's early on. It's going to require a lot of work, but I think it has the makings of the kind of project that I think we really need to step back and again, it's going to be redeveloped. What's the best thing to do? And I don't think the best thing is to have all retail or all residential. So I think it's a mixed use is going to be, in my opinion, the perfect use for that site. So, here we have an applicant that's proposing that. So I think it's, it behooves us all to really work with these guys and see what we can do about putting it together.
Okay. Thank you, Member
Thank you,
Impemba.
Mr. Chair.
Yeah, thank you for mentioning that 3A subcommittee that we had. I think there was a lot of good work there. If you folks know the site now that they're talking about, we probably spent a half a dozen long meetings on that, such that the building would not be looking like a piano. Joe, if you remember that. So
That's right. That's exactly right. That piece of it and that front building.
That's
So we
correct.
said, that was all part of that approval of that back building, was that within 2 years or 3 years, that whole front building was going to be redeveloped and revitalized. And just financially, the owner wasn't able to do it. And that's what we're going to run across if we don't, get this thing developed the right way with the right mix of uses in there,
Thank you. Thank you, Member Impemba. I'm going to go to Member LaRue with their hand raised. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I have a number of questions, but I also know that we are past the time when we were supposed to start our regular meeting. So I'm not expecting answers at all. I just want to put these things out there so the applicant can consider them and we can discuss them at our next meeting. So number one, I would like to discuss the possibility of getting more than 15% affordable. I understand that it's difficult. You said it was tough. You didn't say it was impossible. So let's work at that. I am worried about traffic, and I need to take a good long look at the traffic study. I'm concerned about not only volume, I am concerned about volume, but in addition to that, I'm concerned about the safety, especially of people taking left-hand turns out of that piece of property. That concerns me, and I need to see how that's going to work. On one of the slides, when you were talking about the benefits to Burlington, one of the things on there was how this increased walkability. I'm not sure how it does, because I'm concerned about people who are trying to walk from this piece of property out to the common into other areas. It's not an easy place to do that, and I'm concerned about that, and we need to make sure that's going to be safe. I would like to talk about the number of units and the price point on these units. Again, we don't have to do all of this tonight. These are just some of the things I'm going to be looking for. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Member LaRue. We have Member Covino, please.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Just a point of clarification, if the staff could help me out. It's my understanding that all we're really doing is recommending to town meeting on these warrant articles. And these warrant articles are only giving the applicant the possibility of submitting an application for approval to the various boards. Am I correct?
That's my understanding.
You are correct, but it
All right.
is
So
part of the.
although we're discussing the project in detail, that those discussions will obviously come up against the boards that will approve them, planning and whoever. Okay, so that was my first point. My second point is that now that it's out in the open, a lot of people know that something is going on there. Is it possible for maybe the planning board to coordinate an email list for people who are not on any of these three committees to be able to be notified when this is coming before ZBRC or land use or planning before it gets approved at town meeting? Is that possible? Staff.
Anyone who submits, we obviously have the abutter list, but
Yep.
even from that list, they get notified of the public hearing when it begins. But if anyone wants consistent notification at each
Right,
meeting,
that's what I'm talking.
and about anything else, I mean, I'd obviously need land use and zoning bylaw review to coordinate with us, but anyone who contacts our office, Jen Chalinas, our administrative assistant, will put together an email list on any project, and she'll send out the agenda and any other information. So we
Okay.
can certainly begin that, but would need coordination with the other two groups to.
Sure, great,
widen that.
great. Because I know there's going to be quite a bit of interest. It's in a very visible area, and there are some definite strong opinions either way. And one of the things that seems to be appealing to this project is the developer's offer to make these for sale units and not apartments. It was my understanding that we can't zone for that. So to the developer, to staff, for a future answer, how can we make that absolutely positively not be changed, no matter who the owner is of the project after this gets approved at town meeting? Thank you. I'm all set right now, and I can await the answers. Thanks, Bill.
Thank
Jim.
you,
So,
Member
Mr. Vice
Covino.
Chair, as well as Mr. Covino, I just wanted to, Liz put the planning@burlington.org in the chat. If you're interested on being on a email list for this project, email us and let us know which, that this is the project you're interested in being notified about. And to the second question, there is a way to ensure that the ownership model is secured through zoning and project development, not necessarily directly through zoning, but there is a way, and we will certainly be discussing it.
Thank you. Thank you. Mike, just a quick question related to, if I may, to staff. With regard to condos in the affordable housing, I recall that goes away after a certain period of time versus rentals do not. They're staying in perpetuity.
That is not the case. It
Okay.
depends on how it's written. I think there was older projects that might have been the case. That's not the case. That does not need to be the case, and they can be 15% of the units in perpetuity for sure.
Thank you. Thank you, staff. Appreciate it. Okay, Mr. Spayo, any comments?
All set, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Mr. Member Raymond.
Yes, I believe this belongs before the planning board. I think that, this is interesting. It's a beginning because that's such an important piece of property that it ought to go before the planning board. And I think the planning board, with our staff, our professional staff, which always makes good recommendations to us, and that we ought to probably form a subcommittee along with land use and to come up with, 1, 2, 3 recommendations. What's the best way to allow this project to move forward? And that's my brief comments.
Thank you, Member Raymond. I think to your point that we've caught up into other applications to town meeting where we would prefer to support that 100%. but maybe not as written currently today. And I know that we get into these time crunches where there's a rush to town meeting, where I think all the board would be in favor of something like this, but again, with to fine tune it a bit and to get that done before Maytown meeting. And the publication before Maytown meeting comes when? It's got to be April, right? And that's going to come very, very quickly. So maybe there's a couple things here. Either you don't have the finish line in for Maytown meeting, but maybe we take a little breather on it and get the subcommittees going and say, this is in a format that will make it that we're in favor of going to town meeting with. I think that's been probably a more successful way versus the ones that have been trying to rush through may not get, not necessarily full approval, but it's full board consensus on that. Just my comment. Being that you've only had the project, I think you said for 45 days, which is a fairly small time to have a project of this size. So I'm just kind of from a sense of first level units. How many units are in the condos across from CVS? Does anybody know? 2 buildings combined? What's the number?
There's 38 units in Darlington Heights.
Each unit?
There's
No.
38 in
Total?
between total. There's yeah.
So we're talking 3 times what's across from Burlington Heights there. Okay, thank you. And then does the applicant own all the properties that they talked about, the 2 abandoned houses and the one that's occupied?
We have them all under purchase and sale, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Okay, I think that's all I had for real quick. Is there anybody else that wants to discuss this at all in the audience? I see a number of other people here, but raise your hand remotely or on the screen if you'd like to discuss this. Okay, seeing none, do I have a motion?
Motion to continue this matter to the planning board meeting of March 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Okay, motion and second, roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. Okay.
Before Mr. Vice Chair, before we close out on it, the idea of a subcommittee of potentially the 3
Mhm.
groups, if the chairs want to, if there, well, one, is there general potentially, maybe that's something you'd like to do, and if so, I would recommend that members of their committee contact their chairs and probably not more than 2 people per
Mhm.
group, since it'll
Yep.
be 6 people is
Okay.
quite a bit. And then we can try to coordinate a meeting.
Thank
if
you,
people are
Kristen.
so interested.
Great idea. Thank you. I don't know if we can do that tonight, but so yeah, please, members, if you have some interest, please contact Kristen on that. And we'll get that, I think we get to get that going sooner than later. If we could. Okay, thanks. All right, so next public hearing.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you.
Thanks for your time.
Public hearing, we're talking about item D, public hearing petition to amend the zoning bylaw, Article 2 definitions and Article 5 dimensional requirements to address groundwater separation for 1 dwelling district submitted by the planning board. Okay, who do we have here?
So that's me, Kristen
All
Kevin,
right.
planning director.
Thank you.
So as you guys have known, we've kind of had an ongoing conversation about development, a single family development, especially large homes and smaller home neighborhoods, how it's affecting the neighborhood. And there's a multi-prong approach. You're going to see some changes in the stormwater bylaw. We'll also be bringing up the subdivision rules and regs over the next little while. But one of the first pieces that Eileen Coleman, who's the the assistant conservation administrator, has been doing a lot of research in terms of what other towns are doing in terms of their stormwater criteria, their amount of impervious surface disturbance that will then they need to submit more engineering drawings. And one of the things that's actually been surprising is that Burlington does not have a groundwater separation bylaw. So therefore, for when you build a single family home, you can build it in the water table, whereas many of our communities around us and in the Commonwealth have a separation. Just like when you put a stormwater system in, it needs to have a 2-foot separation so there's room underneath it to discharge. But this would require that any basement or slab be at least 2 foot above seasonal high groundwater. So we're not building these giant houses with sump pumps that are then either being discharged off their property or in some situations connected to a town system and then discharged further down into wetlands or other properties. So this is really just to try to figure out how we can minimize disturbance within properties as we see development is going to continue. And so what this does is require the dimensional requirement in the one family dwelling district of the RO district only. So this is actually not something that you guys are going to see a lot, but you guys do, you know, we're all, I guess all of us, this whole team is looking over the zoning bylaws. So this was something that one of the first pieces to bring forward. We did speak with a handful of engineers to kind of see what does this look like. We are requiring that an engineer go give us the information. They have to figure out where that seasonal high groundwater table line is. So then when they put the building permit filings in, that there's a definition there. When we asked engineers, a lot of them even said, "Oh, well, you don't have that? That's weird." But you know, it's a couple $1,000s added to the cost of construction, which a couple $1,000s cost of construction to build a home versus, you know, really negatively affecting your neighbors was something that we felt was fairly straightforward. So the language that you see here is similar to language that was presented in Lexington, and somewhat similar, but we crafted it, of course, to meet our bylaws. So if anyone has any questions on that, we'll certainly give you a little bit more diagrams at the next meeting, but wanted to bring this forward. And you'll be also seeing the stormwater bylaw amendments to the Conservation Commission move forward as well.
Thank you, staff. Appreciate that. Is this planned to go to Maytown meeting as well?
This is, yep.
Okay, thank you. Well, let me start off with the planning board. Any planning board member who would like to comment on this? Raise your hands or speak up.
Bill?
Yes, Barbara, please.
Just a brief comment. There's actually been quite a bit of misinformation and confusion about this and the Conservation Commission's bylaw online. And I think it's really important that people come to these meetings to find out what's actually being discussed, because what's being discussed online is not really what we're talking about here, and it's causing a lot of angst. So I think maybe for our next meeting, when we discuss this and when we discuss the conservation bylaw, I think we need to do a little bit more community outreach so that people know that it's happening and know that they can participate and be part of our process. Because it's, I think we're here to do what's right for the residents of Burlington. That's what we're all trying to do. We're trying to protect neighbors. We're trying to protect the environment. And I think people need to be part of that process so that they can see for themselves that this is not government overreach and all the other things that we're hearing about. So I'm asking staff if we can find a way to do a little bit more outreach, both online and through other means, to make sure that everyone who wants to be part of this process is aware of when we're discussing. Thank you.
So we definitely heard that there was definitely some scuttlebutt around this issue.
Mhm.
And the one thing I failed to say was this only impacts new construction and or additions that are over 1,000 square feet. So if you're doing small addition, none of that on your existing house, none of that will trigger this. It's over 1,000 square feet or new construction.
Thank you. Now, Ms. LaRue, is this happening like on Facebook or something, some local Burlington
Yes.
resident thing?
Yes,
Is there an opportunity for an official Burlington response to some of that? Like I think Kristen said, to be very clear on that, to have an official response to that, or did the officials stay off that?
Well, I personally responded just encouraging people to come to our meetings to get the real story. I think there's, it can get a bit messy if
Mhm.
you try to get into back and forth with
Mhm.
people, especially when they're responding to misinformation, and getting frightened,
Yeah.
frankly.
Yeah.
I think the best thing we can do is try to get as many people here to our meetings to hear it from us so they know what's going on and so that they can be part of the process. If there's something about this that they don't like, this is the place to tell us,
Okay.
not on Facebook.
So you're putting like links to the meeting in there and things like that?
I have not, because it was just a recent thing, but I think we need to start doing that on some issues, especially on this one.
Yeah. That's what I was kind of thinking.
Perhaps our
if
perhaps our official response is not so much to try to counteract the misinformation rather than just to give the information about how to come
how
here.
to participate. Yeah. Yeah. I just think of other groups I'm on Facebook that it's a semi-official groups. This seems to be an unofficial group for the town, but
Yes.
it's an official, right? Okay.
It's
Thank
very
you.
unofficial.
Thank you, member.
But it's frightening people and it's starting to snowball with a lot of misinformation.
Thank you, member Covino.
Yeah, I would just caution, or I would think that, especially in a matter that's already open in front of the planning board, that planning board members commenting online on Facebook might not be such a good idea. I think it's probably a good idea to direct people with questions either to staff or to come to the meetings.
Right. Thank you. Okay.
And
Anybody else?
I did have one question for staff, if I could, Mr. Chairman. And that is the 2 foot above groundwater, at average mean groundwater, whatever it is. That dimension, Kristen, how was that arrived at? Or you don't have to answer now, but can you answer at a future meeting? Thanks.
Okay.
Yeah, overall, a standard unit of measure that is what we were looking for. So it was easily found and determined.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you, staff. Anybody else from the planning board have any comments on this? Okay. Seeing none, I'll go over to Mr. Webb. Anybody from the land use? Any comments there? Unmute, please. Unmute.
No, I don't think so right now.
Thank you, Mr. Webb. And Ms. Ellis?
Thank you. Yeah, just one quick question. More questions later, I'm sure, but this is a dimensional requirement, so it would be subject to a dimensional variance?
Ooh, good question.
It would, but it would at least give us the science to figure out where that number is, which gives us a lot more information about properties that we don't have now.
Okay. Thank you.
But yeah, yes, it would.
Okay. And any other subcommittee members looking for hands? Okay. Great. Thank you. Did I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to continue these matters to the planning board meeting of March 3rd, 2022.
Second.
Okay, motion and second. Let's do a roll call.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
All right. Well, I'd like to, that concludes the joint meeting of the ZBRC and the land use. So thanks to all the members that attended here today. I thought there were a number of important issues. It took longer than we anticipated here, but I think the issues at hand are something that was very important to all these particular boards. So thanks again. So let's go to the matters of the planning board, and we'll continue. There's a couple of being continued off the agenda, but thanks to everybody from the other boards. Thank you very much. All right, continuances. Do I have a motion? Okay.
Mr. Chairman, I would like to make a motion to take item E out of order for discussion purposes.
Okay.
Second.
Motion is seconded. Motion to take 7E out of order for discussion purposes. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
All right, item 7E is a continued public hearing application for approval of site plan 15 Adams Street, Senate construction applicant. Do I have a motion?
Motion to take this, continue this item to the planning board meeting of March 3rd, 2022, as requested by the applicant in an email dated January 17th, 2022.
That's the February 17th, I think, right? The email's February 17th, 2022?
Correct. Thank you, Mr.
Second.
Chairman.
Second in motion, and staff, this is continued again because of issues with conservation, I think you said, or
Yes, they have not,
They have-
they haven't invited conservation yet, Mr. Chair, and so, instead of, we didn't want to have you guys approve it and then have conservation come back and change the plan. So, we advised them to wait until conservation was able to weigh in.
Thank you. Okay, motion's been second. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We're going to go on to announcements.
Sure. So President's Day is this upcoming Monday, February 21st, and all town offices will be closed. And then the next ZBRC signage subcommittee is going to be February 22nd at 5:30 p.m. via Zoom. That's all I have.
Thank you, Liz. Any other members have announcements? I'm sure Barbara have one for the sculpture committee. Any
I
plugs
think
there?
I said it all last night.
All right. Great. Okay. Anyone else from the staff or planning board? Any other announcements? Okay. Legal notices none, non-approvals none, matters of appointment. Okay, in the matters of appointment, it is item A, public hearing applicant for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.6.9 fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws, 50 Summit Drive, Jersey Mike's. Greg Ralph Architect is the applicant. All right, who do we have here representing Jersey Mike's?
You have myself, Gregory Ralph, the architect for the applicant, for the,
The owner, Robert Cancro.
Robert,
Yes.
thank you, folks.
Hi, just wanted to introduce myself to the town. Little history. I grew up in New Jersey. My wife grew up in Lowell. We moved back up here about 6 years ago. We opened up our first store in Beverly, Mass. So we've been part of that community for, like I said, the last 6 years. We do a tremendous amount of charity work with the town. We work with the first responders. We work with the commerce. We work with all the churches and the schools. We're always doing fundraising for them and trying to, give back to the community, whatever, as much as we can. Stores, Jersey Mike's, I don't know if you know, we have about 2,000 stores nationally. We're targeted to open up about 300 new stores nationally. What a key point of this is that 80% of our stores are from existing franchisees. So it has a good testament to what the corporation is all about and the owner. We're not a public company, it's a private company. So it's not a lot of turnover. It's very difficult to have new franchisees to get into it because of the culture and everything that we try to embed in our employees and in our community. So with that, I just wanted to say hello and, looking forward to, opening up soon and getting to meet everybody. So
Great.
with that, I'd like to turn over to the architect, Greg.
Thank you. Just 1 second on that. Thank you, Mr. Cancro. I'm also the representative on the Recreation Committee. So to jump in before Barbara, I was asked by the Recreation Committee if we have applicants that are interested in giving back to the community, that if you don't mind, I'll give the Recreation Commission your contact name. They do, and I think Jersey Mike's would be a good connection there to what some of that happens with the Recreation Commission and department. They do a fantastic job here, and I think you'll be a nice fit for
Absolutely.
those things. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
All right, so back to the architect, if you can kind of give us a little bit of background on what's going on, the location, and what you're looking for with regard to the special permit.
Yeah, sure. It would be, I can share my screen just to show the site plan and the floor plan and talk through it briefly.
Yes, please.
We will go to screen 1.
Okay, great. Thank
So
you.
I will start with the site plan. So our address is 50 Summit Drive. It's the front building on this parcel on Middlesex Turnpike and Summit Drive. There is currently a tenant in the front of this, and we're looking at this space here that's at the back side of the front building. And I'll switch through the architectural plans that on the cover page, we have a little key showing that same reference to that building with a satellite view with the parking field around it. And again, we're this slice of building. So it'll be a 2-tenant space with this approval. And then I'll switch to the plan and just give me a second to get my notes up over here and talk you through. So we are proposing an approximately 1,185 square foot tenant fit out. The majority of that square footage is occupied by this kind of area highlighted in red is the prep, kitchen space, serving line, payment area. That occupies the bulk of the space. And then in this area that's not in that red cloud, we do show 15 total seats. We have 12 seats at tables, and we have 3 that are at kind of like a bar top up front. And just very briefly, customers flow in, flow around the queue, come up, place their order, fresh made every order, walk down, get their options. By the time they get down here, sub's ready, they pay for it, and they are out and on their way. That's basically it in terms of flow. I saw the engineering comments. I can state to one of them that was more specific about a dumpster. There is a concrete pad directly adjacent to the building, actually right outside our rear door to the right. And we would have use of that dumpster. And in terms of the rest of the engineering comments received, we would take no exception and would agree to comply to them.
Okay.
So I'm happy to field any other specific questions about what you would be interested about our use or fit out specifically.
Okay, we'll ask for members of the planning board. Let me go down the list here. I will start with Ms. LaRue. You're first on my list.
I don't really have any questions about this. Thank you.
Thank you. Next, I see Mr. Covino. If you're on mute, Ernie. Or don't have a
Sorry.
comment.
Thank you. I'm all set right now. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Impemba. Mr. Impemba, if you're on mute as well.
Yeah.
Thank you.
No, I'm all set, Mr. Chair. Thank you.
Okay, Mr. Espail.
All set, Mr. Chairman. Thank you.
Thank you. And Mr. Raymond?
No, all set. They obviously, with the number of stores they have, know what they're doing.
Thank you. Thank you, Mr. Raymond. I had probably a couple of questions. Landscaping, what's your landscaping plan look here? And then with your dumpster, what does that look like? What's the enclosure look like? Are you planning on putting some landscaping around there as well?
So we would be just taking over the tenant fit out of this space. So we did not have plans to alter any of the existing landscaping that is on site now with this grass and this little planting bed and the walkway and the entry that exists. That would persist and remain. There's a small planting area here as well in the parking. There's a planting along the back existing. And then this concrete area with the dumpster would be in its existing form, and we would just continue that with our use.
Is the dumpster fenced in? Or will it be?
I need to pull this to my other screen because I have an image. It currently has bollards around it. I do not. Oh no, it's currently there's an existing fence with slats screening it.
Okay. Do you have a photograph of something what that looks like? Pull up Google Map, I suppose, but that might be a little old.
Yes. Give me 1 second to see if our site photos would have that for you.
Thank you. Thanks. That's great. Yeah.
This just does not. Oh no, that photo the Google is older. So this is the dumpster area here. There's the bollards near it because there's a transformer next to it. So no, there was no current screening around the dumpster.
Okay. Is there an opportunity to get a nice looking fence there around that? Maybe to match either the gray that you have there or something something, maybe a white slat fence or something. That's typically what we ask our applicants to do with the dumpsters, instead of just have them hanging out there.
Robert, I defer to you in some ways. Is that something you'd be willing to do as part of the renovation?
Yes.
Okay,
Yeah.
thanks.
I'll talk to the landlord if we'll come up with a plan to do this one way or the other. It'll be done.
Okay, thank you. And just with the landscaping you said, is that the landscaping right there in the right corner you said, that
There-
bush?
That is one area here that is existing. I have a few other.
Is it just the one bush there? Oh, there you go. That helps. out.
Around the building and around the front, all around the building, there's different pockets of landscaping. So that one photo is a little bit deceiving with the dumpster. It
Yeah.
doesn't represent the full landscaping.
Yep. Okay. Any other members have any comment on landscaping or the dumpster?
So, Mr. Vice Chair, the dumpster is required to be enclosed, so that it must happen.
Okay. Do you want to be specific on what we put in the decision? Does any member have any preference on that? Do you want to have to match the gray of the building, perhaps, like a gray slatted fence?
Personally, I think that would look nice, but I'm not married to it.
Okay.
Madam Chair, Mr.
Madam Chair,
it is.
I'll take in, I've been called worse.
Well, I'm still awake. No, I would think that we would ask that they properly screen the dumpster in concert with the rest of the building,
Okay.
that is the architecture and so forth.
So we
it's
can have
something
that
fits
as a,
in.
thank you, Mr. Raymond. We'd have that by decision of the chair and staff. That makes sense? The
Excellent,
release of
that's
that.
good for
Thank you.
me, yeah.
Okay, I'm just looking if there's anything else we can do out front there. I know the part where the East Boston Savings Bank was, in front, there'd be a nice little spot there where I'm looking right in the center of your picture for a nice baller, but I don't think that's your side of the building, is that correct?
Correct. Our side pretty much terminates at this
Yeah,
corner.
yeah,
We're
yeah,
one bay over.
Okay.
Yeah, I mean, any opportunity to go with, is there any spot for any trees, anything, any
Yeah,
kind
if
of
you look where you
tree
had, you see the
planting
ones on
there?
the left, but to the right, to that corner, you said you had that one little bush. Is there an opportunity to put a tree? And I know this is not Google Maps, on the front side, we had that little bush right there. Is there an opportunity to, I see, that's a tree right there, I think, so we might be,
There is a tree. Again, this photo is a little bit deceptive. It clips
Yeah.
just a little too shy because this tree in the distance is in this
oh, is that
location.
tree right there? Yeah, that's a nice colorful, that's a beautiful spot. I'm not too much. If you can dress that island up even more, that would be great, I think.
Understood.
Mr. Pembler, what's your thought?
Yeah, no, I agree, Bill.
Okay, because that's if we so keep the tree.
Yeah.
Understood.
We got enough trees taken down. Thank you very much. That's all I had. Anybody here from the public that would like to speak in favor or against this application? Raise your hand on the screen or raise your hand here remotely. I'm looking. Staff, anything?
Yeah, so I just had a quick question. So the sidewalk that's like, there's a little bit of that indent in the building, and I just was curious from the Jersey Mike's folks, if you had enough room to clear, to make sure there's still a 5-foot travel area, 4 to 5 foot travel area, but if you wanted to put a small table and very small chairs for people to sit
Okay.
at,
But that's in front of the bank though, right?
I'm not sure. It's something that if you were to do it, I think we would encourage a small outdoor seating. Certainly
Oh,
not to affect the sidewalk area, but
Right this side.
we would need to approve it as part of the special permit. So
Mhm.
if you were going to do it, I just wanted to talk about it a little bit. You can certainly say we'd like to do it. We don't know if the bank will let us do it, but if they let us do it, we want to make sure it's in the permit itself.
So it looks like that one square to the left, that right there may be part of your.
That's directly within the lease line, and then you get to your point. There may be communication with the property owner and the bank tenant to permit more. Robert, how do you feel about that being part of the approval?
No, I think that's a good idea.
Yeah, I think
It'll
if
just
I
make it a little bit
recall,
more, it'll make it a
Yeah.
little bit more homey and a little bit
Yeah.
more inviting if we could do something like that.
Yeah, I think just part of these special permits, when that happens and you're gonna put umbrellas out there, we ask that they don't be branded. And the usual conditions there. If I recall, this particular site, when it first came up, there were gonna be cement benches there, weren't there, staff? That was gonna be there, that they were gonna be putting in permanent cement benches with the idea that there'd be outdoor seating there, if you recall.
I don't remember it. There may
Yeah,
have
that
been
was,
seat
I think that
walls.
was the original plan, if you recall. So the idea was that indentation was gonna be for, I think it was a single tenant with the idea where it would be a food establishment, and that would be kind of a, but I'm glad the built-in cement benches were put there, because I think we can do a little bit better, like you said, to enhance that, to make it more inviting and, okay. Thank you. Anything more, staff, that you had?
Mr. Chair, so this site was kind of redone and redeveloped by Gutierrez in, I think, 2016.
Okay.
Just for your reference, this building and this site was permitted, and they just blanket did a permit for it. They didn't have tenants, but they said, if we were going to do a restaurant, we would be permitting it for 51 seats.
Mhm.
This is well under that. If we are adding, what I would like confirmation of is if we are going to be allowing seating outside, is that, with that 15 seat that we're going to put in our decision, what, is there an additional seat? Is there additional seatings? Do we want to cap it at 15, or just what is that number so that we can write the decision and have a
Yeah, I
something
think we're a little bit in
finalized?
trouble because they don't have that area that you'd like to have them in front, so there's not a way we can approve that. I think maybe what they do, if they want to put some outdoor seating there, they have an opportunity for just that little, what's it, a 4-foot square, but that doesn't really help you out. But there's not agreement, because I think the 51 seats, I think you're talking about was the entire building. There wasn't going to be a subdivision of that.
Right. So maybe, I mean, off the top of your head, I don't want to put you on the spot. But how many seats do you think you could even put there? And do we want to, for the planning board would, maybe like 18 or 20 seats?
Yeah, my opinion would be that if it's just this little area here with this inset, based on the interior, we could probably get maybe 4 total,
Yeah.
two tops in here. And if there was opportunity to be across the lease line, no more than an additional 4. So I would not see any way to have more than 23 seats total. Whatever you want to do with that number, I think is fine with us.
Mr. Chair?
Yes, go ahead, Mr. Mpemba.
Yep, so if there's gonna be any seating out there at all, and I hate to say it, we usually require some bollards or some sort of a
Right.
barrier, because that parking is
Hey,
perpendicular parking, and it's heading in, so.
Right.
Is it gonna be enough to put a couple of, at least, just to cover that area, a couple of bollards there?
So
if
yeah, maybe what you do is we don't approve it now, but if you think about it and you want to come back for it, then it would just understand there's bollards, there's going to be planters we're going to require in front, and then you have to keep the sidewalk distance. So there'll be a lot of things in play here. So maybe we just approve now, and then if you're going to think outside seating, come back to us
We'll
on that.
readdress it at a different time.
Yeah.
Okay, understood.
But I think
Mr.
you'd
Chairman,
have to
Paul
come back for
Raymond.
us anyway for outdoor seating, so.
Right.
Okay.
I mean,
Mr.
yeah, I mean,
Chairman?
not to discourage it, I would love to see
Right.
outdoor seating there,
Yeah.
but, if they do, I'd like to see, either black, wrought iron bollards there, just a couple, just for that one spot, that one little area to cover that,
Yeah. Yeah, so you can either do it now or we can do it later, but you don't have the permission on past the lease line, so you put in one bollard, maybe just in front of where the 4 seats are gonna be,
Mr. Chair, I think Paul Raymond had a comment.
Okay, Mr. Raymond.
Yes, no, I thought that this might deserve to be continued so that we can, rather than spending a lot of time tonight, planning where a bollard goes and something else, that the staff could get together with a subcommittee of 1 or 2. I'd be willing to serve on it, because there's quite a lot of visibility of this corner. It's right there on the turnpike and so forth.
Yeah.
So.
I think our preference as the applicant would be, I think we like the idea very much that if we intended to put outdoor seating, we would come up with a plan. On the site plan, we'd probably have a nice little drawing for you or a render, and we would demonstrate the bollards, the planters, the clearances, but at a separate permit. In other words, separate from this approval.
Thank you. Okay, thank you, Mr. Raymond. So do I have a motion?
Actually,
Okay.
can I just,
LaRue, yes.
that sounds great, what the applicant just said, but based on town meeting's decision last night, they would not have to do that.
Oh, I didn't catch that from last night.
Right,
Okay.
so if that's the
Oh,
case,
yeah.
we might want to address it
If they
sooner
don't
rather
want the,
than later.
Yeah.
if they don't want the outside seating though, why do we?
Right, Fuel.
Okay.
It occurs to me that we may not get a say in the outdoor seating if we don't address it when the applicant, with any applicant, unless it's when they first come to us.
Okay.
Mr. Chairman, maybe we could just modify the permit to say if any outdoor seating is requested in the future, it shall be protected by whatever language you want to put in there, because I think
Yeah,
that
but
seems to be the
would
concern.
be
isn't
ver-
it?
yeah, I think we want to be very specific, which the other option would not be very specific on black ballers or planters and things like that. So
Right, we don't want,
Okay,
we want to say
But the sa-
something. And I like what Ernie's suggesting, because we want to say something so that we don't end up with Jersey barriers.
right.
Could we
Although
say
it's
that
Jersey
the,
Mike's, it would make sense that Jersey Barry is there, right?
would it make sense
of
to
course.
say that conditioned on the approval, they will come back to the planning board with a plan that will require approval?
Can that happen, staff?
They don't have to.
So what you could do is you could increase the number for the possibility within the special permit and require them to come back with a minor engineering change for permanent exterior seating.
Okay, that works for me. Barbara?
It works for me if it works. I mean, I think under the decision that town meeting made last night, I don't think we can require that. Can we?
Well, let's require it and see if they object.
Let's staff. Let's say it's staff. Go ahead, staff. Could you repeat that?
No, I said that's why I use the word permanent. If it's a permanent fixture that they want to come back with a minor engineering change and add permanent things, then certainly they're coming back here with a minor engineering change. The thing that I think that we wanted to try to encourage was the additional seating and not having to come back for the special permit. But I think if we can say that to come back for permanent outdoor seating to have a minor engineering change, I do agree that the vote from last night and the temporary outdoor seating complicates things, and it's hard. We can't really handcuff something. We can't handcuff someone to do what they have the right to do. But
Right.
That the major difference is, a permanent versus temporary. So I think we absolutely can condition that. It sounds like the applicant is willing to bring that forward, but it's the special permit is really the heavy lift to come to the planning board, where a minor engineering change is a lot less so, to just look at plan modifications.
Okay.
And I mean, we still have some things about the dumpster and some vegetation as well. We could add that in, that, we're approving this, but we'll need that to come together before they open for business.
Okay.
May I ask a question? So staff, would it be possible for us to put a condition in here that if at some point in the future outdoor seating, permanent or otherwise, were to be included, that we want to have, and we can specify what type of bollard and fencing there is so that we don't end up with Jersey barriers?
Yeah, you can say anything. I mean, not anything, but in terms of if there is outdoor seating, for which we encourage, we would, in this location, we believe it's appropriate not to have this, but to pursue these types of options.
Yes, I would like to see that kind of wording in here.
Great. And if you could review the special permit with Barbara before it gets signed, staff.
Sure.
Thank you. I think that's
Mr.
great.
Chairman,
Mr. Chair.
can I ask for
Mr. Pino.
clarification? Clarification from staff. So we could say if they want any outdoor seating, even if it's only temporary, they have to come back here? Isn't that in conflict with got passed last night at town meeting?
Yes. I couldn't
Okay,
say,
so we could say,
I can't say you can't go get a different permit.
Yes.
But I can say, if you're gonna do it, we'd like you to do it this way.
okay,
Yes.
all right.
So it's more, this is how we want you to do it. It's not a dictate.
And since they're not asking for that in their application as that's in front of us, I don't know whether this is all.
Right. I know that that's part of the problem with what was passed last night by town meeting, because now we kind of are trying to address things ahead of time, maybe prematurely, because we know we won't get the chance to later.
So what we can do is put this as kind of a standard comment on,
Just, yeah,
yeah, like we do with other things, we have standard, you know, on, if you're gonna put architectural lighting, which they probably won't, but, you know, maybe
Yeah.
they do, but if they do, it's
Yeah.
white, so it's a very similar kind of standard comment on that.
I think that's a good
Part of
idea,
every special
Mr. Chair.
permit regardless, okay? I'm
Thank
okay
you.
with that. Any other comments?
Just
Do we open this to the
confirmation.
public?
Chairman, Mr. Chairman,
Mhm.
so is everybody comfortable with 23 seats, a maximum of 23 seats? Is that agreeable to the board?
I think, Ernie's saying no, it's too many. because
No, I'm not. I'm sorry. I'm
Oh.
not saying no. I don't have a problem with that.
So that's just, it's 23 indoor, so you're maxing out
23
15,
total. Yeah.
23 total with maximum of 15 indoor, right?
Right.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Okay. With that being said, open the public hearing. Anybody have any comments from the public on this particular item? Looking for raised hands. Seeing none, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Okay,
Second,
okay, motion and seconded.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
yes.
Member Covino, Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Okay, do I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Michael Nana on behalf of Jersey Mike's Franchise Systems Incorporated for a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.9, fast order food establishments of the zoning bylaws, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit A attached as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
All right, motion passes. Thank you, folks, and welcome to Burlington.
Welcome.
Thank you very much.
Thank you. Appreciate your time.
Okay. Let's see what we've got next. There's a motion on the, let's see, if I can take a motion for B and C, 7B and C, please.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to take items 7B and 7C together for discussion purposes.
Second.
Second,
Second, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Gaffney, Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. So item 7B, public hearing applicant for approval of a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.2.1 supermarket of the zoning bylaws, 34 Cambridge Street, Mum's Organic Market, Inc. is the applicant. In item 7C, discussion application for approval of minor engineering change, 34 Cambridge Street, Mum's Organic Market, Inc. applicants. Okay, who do we have here representing Mum's Organic Market, Inc.?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman and board members. For the record, Attorney Mark Vaughn with Reamer Bronstein here today, working with Edens, the property owner, and Mom's Organic. Pleased to be before you. Got a couple of folks. I'll introduce Katie Drenga, who is operations coordinator with Mom's. Ben Davis, who's with Edens, and also we have our civil engineer with Bowler, Tim Hayes, that's here. But we're very pleased to be before you, a new tenant, Mum's Organic Market, Inc., that is looking to occupy space at Burlington Crossroads, 34 Cambridge Street, property that I know the board is very familiar with. The space that we're talking about is the space that is, I guess it would be along the northerly side of the existing property. It's kind of a horseshoe, if you would, if you're looking at the property from Cambridge Street. This would be on the left-hand side. And it's the space that lies between the existing Party City and Panera Bread. As I'm sure you know from being down there, there's been a variety of smaller tenants through the years that have been kind of in and out of that space. And I know Eden's is very excited, as is Mom's, to be able to have an opportunity to have a specialty organic grocer that would be able to occupy that space. There's no expansion of square footage that's being talked about. There's a small walk-in freezer that they're talking about in the back of the space, but we're not looking at adding any new building area to the site. So Mom's Organic is a small-scale specialty supermarket, offers a variety of organic and sustainable products to its customers. Presently, they are in 4 different states and in District of Columbia, from what I understand, along the East Coast, but this actually is going to be their first location in Massachusetts. And as is often the case with Burlington, first spot for Moms to decide to locate. So technically the use is defined as a, quote, supermarket under your zoning bylaw. Although I don't think that this necessarily, rises to the level of what many might consider a traditional supermarket. It's 12,300 square feet in size, so pretty modest in size and operation, but nonetheless, it does trigger that special permit requirement. And the applicant is proposing to enhance the tenant facade a bit to, consolidate existing doors and windows, since it has been a multi-tenant spot there. There's the, appreciate Brady bringing that up, but that shows the area that we're talking about along that side of the property. So, but maybe what I could do is briefly introduce Katie, who I know just wanted to introduce herself and Moms, and what their vision is for Burlington. Katie, you there? I hope.
Can you hear me now?
Thank you, Katie.
Hi everyone. Sorry about that. Unmuting problems here. I was just saying that I'm representing Moms, and we are very excited to be moving north. As it's been mentioned, we have quite a few locations down here in the Mid-Atlantic, but we're looking to introduce ourselves to the Massachusetts market, and Burlington was our first stop.
Great. Katie, just to interrupt you there, Katie. Katie, can you introduce your first and last name and who you represent your position?
Oh, yes, absolutely. So my name is Katie Dringa. I'm the operations coordinator for Mom's Organic Market.
Great, thank you. Go ahead.
Sorry, I apologize for that. I was introducing myself on mute. Yeah, I did. So yeah, we're just really excited to get into the Burlington area and make a really good impact there. We are not your traditional supermarket. Our goal is actually to protect and restore the environment while we also offer top quality organic and natural foods to the community. So we're enriching our community with really good food. That everyone needs food, right? That brings us all together. But we also do a lot of community outreach work. We do a lot of streams and river cleanups, multiple field trips with our staff throughout the year, and also engage in, school fundraising events as well. So Burlington seems like a really great fit for us, and yeah, we're really excited for it.
Thank you. Again, again, with my representation on the recreation community, it sounds like you might be another good fit to get the contact there, because there are a lot of young kid type activities, and and with their parents that might be a nice fit for you to work with that particular.
Absolutely, yeah.
But not to get in front of Barbara on the sculpture committee, of course. But
I think I asked one business in the last 6 months about the sculpture committee. But if Moms is interested, we have a lot of fun.
Thank you. So,
let's talk. Yeah.
Anytime.
Very, very excited about this, and thanks for coming to Burlington. I just it looks like it's pretty straightforward. Staff, any comments?
So from a staff perspective, we kind of believe that this is a great addition to the existing plaza. We don't have any real concerns. We think it's great. They are adding external, a seating area out, do a little bit of placemaking. As far as, you think it's cart corrals. It's kind of like a Trader Joe's in that the cart corrals are close to the building. There aren't going to be any cart corrals outside in any of the parking spaces, which is fabulous. Parking, there is enough parking. They meet parking requirements, but I think there's like a very much a perceived parking issue at this plaza. It's very busy, but so that's great. And they do send, we were assured they do send their associates out to collect the carts on a regular basis, which is fantastic. What else? They do, and so they aren't proposing any hot food or prepared food. It's not like a Whole Foods where you have a buffet, so that's really not a concern. And they've added a dumpster enclosure, which is great. They're doing composting, so a lot of their products will also be composted, which is fabulous.
Yep.
We've also added a condition that any new equipment on the roof needs to be sound attenuated because there are residential neighbors, and we don't want to bother them with this new tenant. And if there's anything I'm missing, any of other planning stuff, there's something I'm missing. The only other kind of question I have, this is for Mark, but kind of we were just wondering where, this is kind of offline, but just for our own, where the compact spaces are in the site, because I think there's like a 10% compact space on the site plan. We just wanted to know where they were. I don't think it affects this project, but that's just something that we were interested in from a staff perspective. Kristen, is there anything you think, is there anything you think I've missed or omitted? Or, I mean, it's pretty straightforward.
No, I think you're good. You talked about the distance in the back.
So I did, but so we were concerned about, there is, you can't see, but there's the dumpster enclosure in the back. And it kind of brings, there's a ring road around the back, a service road, and it brings the width down because of that dumpster enclosure down below, I think it is 18 feet. It's about 18 feet down from 20. And so we wanted to make sure, work out with the fire department that would be okay. I haven't heard back from them yet. I think that it's definitely something we can easily work out. I don't think it's a make or break. I think that also there are other things in the back of this building that make the route even narrower that are pre-existing. So we just wanted confirmation from them, but I don't see that that would be a reason to delay action on this item. But that's one thing that we are working out. And
just on that, on that point, so to what Liz had mentioned, that the area back there actually kind of has different width at different spots, but it is as narrow as I think 14 to 15 feet right behind Total Wine. So to the extent that fire apparatus can get through there today, we certainly wouldn't be any less in width than what's out there presently, but I'm not aware of any issues that have arisen out there as a result. So,
okay, thank you very much. Sounds like a great place. Let's go to the planning board members. Members, any comments? Any hands raised? I can't.
Just a couple of quick things.
Sure, Barbara. Yes, Ms. LaRue.
Is there going to be an outdoor refrigerator? Did you say that in the beginning?
yes, if I could, through the chair, to Member LaRue, at the top of the that shaded area right there is an outdoor freezer that would be accessed exclusively through the building itself.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, and it's pretty modest in size, Barbara. What is it, like 10 by 12, I think, something like that, or it's not a big facility.
Okay. And is there parking for employees in the back?
There, whatever parking exists in the back today will continue to remain in the towards the, I guess it would be the northeast corner, further back up, kind of like behind Five Below and Marshalls in that corner. There's a pretty extensive parking lot for employees, so that would stay. And I think Mom's, we've talked about this before, Katie. I think the intent is to have staff obviously park as remotely as possible to not, take up prime parking spaces in the main parking field.
Right. I do think it might make sense to have an employee parking plan because it does get tight in that parking lot sometimes. And I think that this is a wonderful concept, and I expect you're probably going to be very busy, so the parking might get even tighter.
Yeah, I know with, I got caught there one time, I think it was just before Christmas. Did it happen this year? Did anybody know if it got into a gridlock situation before Christmas this year? I got stuck there one time and basically sat it out in Panera. Nobody. came over.
I haven't seen that, but I do know there have been issues in the past with snow removal, and that when we have big snowstorms, it can impede the parking even further.
Through
Thank
you, Mr. Chair, we, staff will add a condition regarding employee parking. I think if it isn't already in the decision, we will definitely make sure that it's there.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And so anybody else from our planning board? I'm trying to see if there's
Mr.
any.
Chairman, can I have a question? It's Mike.
Sure, Mr. Spale, please.
Just a quick question. Will there be doing like deliveries like Instacart or something out of there for people who order online? Will there be a vehicle or anything like that?
Leave that to the applicant, if you're on mute.
My understanding is no curbside pickup, anything like that. But Katie, you want to expand on that if you're still on?
Katie, if you're still on mute. Or if you've dropped.
So
currently,
yeah,
yeah.
This
I
has
know
been
the
with
question-
Eden's.
Yeah,
That had
go
got
ahead.
brought up before when we had the department meeting. And because of the organic nature of their food, they want the customers to kind of be able to pick out their own food. So that, like curbside pickup, online ordering thing is not something that they have.
Okay.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chairman. That's all I had.
That's great, thank you. Any other board members? Looks like Mr. Covino, please.
Yes, just one quick comment. Could we include in the decision that if there is a condenser compressor involved with the outdoor refrigerator, that it be sound attenuated also?
Of course. Yep. You know, some of the neighbors are very sensitive to that over in that area. Thank you.
Yep.
Trying to see if we can see if any other planning board members have any comments. Trying to see hands or anything. Mr. Impemba, Mr. Raymond. Anything?
No.
Okay, thank you. Great.
No, I'm all set.
Okay, anybody in the public that would like to speak for or against this particular petition? Staff, see anybody? I don't see anybody here. Okay, seeing none.
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
I just had one comment,
Sure.
Ms. Lufino. Yeah, it's something, so I'm not sure if I heard it correctly. No outside seating, is that correct?
There's no cafe or food component in terms of to go, but one of the things that had come up was if we're able to provide some outside gathering space. So if over at the Panera corner, that there's seating there. So we're providing a couple of like picnic table elements so that if someone wanted to sit, they could, but there's no to go. Yeah, right there. And there's planter bollard boxes that are in front there today, which are, I think, identical, Ben, to what you have in front of the Panera seating. Is that correct?
Okay,
Yes.
great. Thank you.
I think there's some over in front of the Five Below area as well, Marshalls. So they're throughout the center.
And so I'm looking here, my other question was that car corral is going to be inside or outside. It looks like it's outside the car corral. And it's on the other side of the bollards?
Yeah, it would be basically flush to the building on each side of the entrance of the building. It would be kind of just flush, where similar to what I think Total Wine has, Ben, is that correct?
I don't recall what Total Wine has, but this is under the canopy. We did 2 separate ones on either side to keep it single file with the carts to make sure that there's still plenty of room for people, you know, to get by the cart corrals, you know, and, you know, maintain underneath the canopy.
So where I'm looking here at the plan, the proposed, I can see here, I thought it was that particular runway there. It looks like it's pointing to those areas in front there. Okay, I see that. Yeah, okay.
Yep.
Thank you. The only other thing, you have yellow striping there where it says no parking. And I think I've mentioned this before, in front of Panera, I don't know why, but that curve, people have been tripping over that. And I've seen people and you know, elderly folks tripping over that curbing for whatever reason right along that way. And my recommendation there was that the curbing itself be painted yellow so folks that are going in there can see that there's actually curbing there. Is that something that you can do on this side as well? I think I recommended that for in front of Panera when I've seen the people falling. Because is there a curb cut there, or is it straight curbing all the way along? People have to step up to get in the doorway. Because the carriage is going to have to come up, right? So there's a curb cut, right?
I think that there's, I'm just looking at a Google image of it,
Yeah.
Gaffney, and I think it's flush in the middle between this location and where Panera is, and then the curbing goes up a bit, so it's not flush. But I don't see why, Ben, I'll defer to you if putting some better marking the curb there if someone's going to be walking or.
Yeah, where I saw the people falling down was, you know, you had your curb cut where people would just kind of walk straight, but then off to the side of that were angled up. That's where the people were kind of taking headers. And so maybe, because you got to get the carts up there, right? So there's got to be a curb cut up there somewhere. So if you can, right at the point where it's, you know, it's taking that angle up from the curb cut to get your, and I don't know why people, I think one day I saw 2 people take the header at the same spot. I'm like, you know, we got to do something, and it's right next to that. So,
Okay.
for some reason.
Yeah, I mean, maybe if it's even a painting or repositioning planters or something
Yep,
of that nature
yep.
to, right, yep,
Yeah, thank you.
uh,
Okay.
definitely.
And that's all I had. So again, we closed the public hearing. There was a motion made. Is there a second?
Second.
Okay, motion made and second. We're looking for a roll call.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. So now for the special permit, may I have a motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of Mom's Organic Market Incorporated for a special permit pursuant to section 4.2.6.2.1 supermarket of the zoning bylaws, subject to the terms and conditions contained in Exhibit B as amended.
Second.
Okay, motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. And thank you very much. Welcome to Burlington. I think that's it on that one, right? Is there
Thank
one
you.
more? Hold on.
There's a minor
nope.
engineering change. One more, please.
One more, sorry. Look at
Where is that?
where is that? That's what I'm looking for myself.
The bottom of page 8.
Page 8. Oops. I don't see it on page
Okay,
8,
I
but-
found it. Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request for approval of a minor engineering change. Property located at 34 Cambridge Street to modify the front building facade, mechanical systems, design cart corral areas along the tenant facade frontage, install new doors, enclosed dumpsters, and install a walk-in freezer at the rear of the building as reflected on the red line site plan entitled Proposed Grocery Store Remodel, prepared by Bowler Engineering, dated November 22nd, 2021, and revised to January 31st, 2022, consisting of 5 sheets, subject to the following revisions, terms, and conditions as amended.
Okay, motion made. Second, thank you. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, thank you. And to the applicant, this is a Crossroads Plaza has been there for a while, had many diverse applicants there. Very busy with the, Total Wines next door and Panera. You've got Target, you've got CVS over there, so I think you're going to be very, very happy there. So welcome.
Thank you very much. I appreciate everyone's time.
Thank you.
Is excited about coming. So thank you very much.
Okay.
Thanks, everyone.
All right, continuing on, looks like 7D, public hearing application for approval of site plan 26 Beacon Street. First Patriot Corporation is the applicant. Staff, can you tell us where we are? I know we had a site visit there. I wasn't able to make it, but hopefully, I think it was a nice day that day that you were able to go out and check it out.
So we did go out, it rained, then it hailed.
Oh, so not so nice. Maybe
Then
it's
it
good that I
rained
didn't make it.
again, and then it was sunny. So we got the full spectrum of New England weather in one sidewalk.
Great.
But we persisted, and so it was a good site walk. It was good to walk the site. They have updated the plan based upon discussion. So at the last plan, we talked a lot about there's a lot of children on who live on this property, and so making sure that there's safe access to the bus. They've added sidewalk. We talked about landscaping in the front of the site along the frontage of Beacon Street, and they've added that, which is fabulous. We were concerned about kind of a pinch point by the area of the new compactors. And so we proposed to eliminate 2 of the parallel spaces along the ring road to alleviate the pressure there. But as I'm pretty sure that's, I don't think that, and then the other thing is they will be losing a basketball court. And so I think kind of we discussed that, if they could relocate it or find another area that is already being used, already a hot top that can be used for a basketball court or something, that would be amenable for us. Kristen and Brady, is there anything else that I have missed that you think needs to be added to my comment?
There are some questions about the neighbors' input. I wanted just to report, I think I forwarded it to you guys, but the neighbor right above in the front was pleased with the plan that they have put forward. We also watched the school kids get dropped off at the bus, the middle school kids and then young kids. And we noticed the kids do just walk down the drive. So the sidewalk, I think, is definitely going to help. But we also noticed that parents would pull into those spaces right along the front there. So we were contemplating, and Liz, I apologize if you already said this, but to have those, or recommend that they be kind of 15-minute spaces right next to where the overhang is. And then the trees along the front, they've proposed those trees, but final design of all the tree plantings and the plantings along the front entrance to be reviewed and approved by planning director or in consultation with chair. So I think that's it. Otherwise, Liz, I think you got everything, and I apologize if I repeated something you said.
Nope, we're good.
Okay, great. Let's go on to the planning board members who were either able to make it there or have any additional comments. Let me go reverse order. Mr. Raymond.
Yes, I had suggested that we designate the parking spots right on the corner by where the house is up on the hill.
Yep.
And we're coming in, and those be designated for the staff. So there would be less likely that there were cars going back and forth there. And, those cars would be parked and they'd stay there. And that would reduce the amount of traffic and potential, conflict on that corner. But it was a minor thing, but I just thought that it would be something simple that we could do, which would be positive.
Okay. Thank you, Mr. Impemba. Unmute. Joe, we'll catch up with you, Mr. Covino.
All set, made the sidewalk. I think what they're proposing is fine. I believe some of the landscaping that they're proposing is actually in the Beacon Street right of way, if I'm not mistaken. So that probably needs some DPW input or something too. But,
Okay.
I'm
Okay.
sure staff is. get that.
Great, thank you.
Thank
Mr. Espail.
All set right now, Mr. Chairman.
Thank you. Back to Mr. Impemba. Joe, any comments? All right, and Ms. LaRue.
Just one thing, I just wanted to ask staff to make sure that we have in this decision what we had discussed about continuing the row of pear trees in the front.
Hmm.
I believe they've been added.
Okay,
We do,
thank you.
you'll see them here.
Thank you.
Great, thank you. I don't have any comments. May I have a motion? Let me check out, sorry, before I have a motion, let me see if there's anybody in the public that would like to speak for or against this particular application. Checking for hands. Staff, anybody? Seeing none? Now
Okay,
may I have
Mr.
a motion?
Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to close the public hearing on this matter.
Second.
Okay, motion made in second. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Thank you. May I have another motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion to approve the request of First Patriot Corporation, the applicant, for approval of a site plan application for property located at 26 Beacon Street to permit the construction of a new leasing office maintenance building, compactor building, and associated parking and site improvements as reflected on the site plan entitled Beacon Village Improvements, 26 Beacon Street, Burlington, Mass., prepared by Howard Stein Hudson, dated December 16th, 2021, and revised to February 14th, 2022, consisting of 12 sheets. The project is subject to the following terms, revisions, and conditions as printed.
Second.
And there's a motion and second. Roll call, please.
Member Clerk, Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
The motion passes.
Okay, thanks. I think that's it. Thank you very much. Good luck.
Thank you, guys.
Yep. That was a great one. Okay, continuing on to minutes. I know there were a couple of minutes. I think I looked at the last one that Brady put in. I didn't catch the new ones that he put in there, so Brady, I think I just have one that you presented. I just didn't look at the other ones. Rest of the group, have you had a chance to look at those meeting minutes?
Yep.
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 Okay, so I think we have enough.
I haven't, so I apologize.
Okay, how about you, Mr. Raymond?
Yes.
Okay, so why don't we take a vote on minutes? Any motion?
Mr. Chairman, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes for, and I don't have the date in front of me.
Yeah.
Anyone?
Brady, can you help us out on that?
I can. So they are December 2nd, 2021, January 6th, 2022, and January 20th, 2022.
I can vote on the December 2nd one, so if you want to split those up, Barbara, I'll just take them. If you want to take them to the hall, I'll just abstain to all three.
Okay.
Well, motion was
You're
made
assuming
for all
that
three.
I got all those dates. December
Okay.
2nd, what were they, Brady?
January 6th and January 20th.
Okay. First, I'll make a motion that we accept the meeting minutes for December 2nd, 2021.
Second.
Okay, roll call? Yes. We're on mute,
Yes.
so,
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Abstain.
Member LaRue.
Yes. Now, can I take the other two Januaries
other two.
together?
Yeah, why
Okay.
don't we do that? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, I'd like to make a motion that we accept the minutes for January 6th, 2022 and January 20th, 2022.
Second.
Motion made in second, roll call, please.
Vice Chairman Gaffney,
Abstain.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Cavino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Abstain.
Member LaRue.
Yes.
Okay, so that makes it it's a 4-0-2,
4-0-2.
right? Thank you. Okay, discussion, other matters, discussion, correspondence. Staff, no, reports from town council, probably not, which is
No,
good.
I did want to bring up, I know, both Sherry and Sally Willer brought up the DHCD MBTA communities guidance that's coming out, or has come out back in December. They're looking for comment by the end of March. We're working with town council to give a presentation in early March
Okay,
to multiple committees, the selectmen, housing partnership, zoning bylaw review, land use, all of us really, to just understand more about that, so we as a town can comment back appropriately.
great, thanks. Subcommittee report, Sculpture Park Committee.
I think I might have mentioned this before, that we have put out our second call to artists. We're very excited about it, and we'll give you an update when we hear back from them.
Great. Thank you,
Can I
Member
ask,
LaRue. Go ahead.
Mr. Chair, can I ask Barbara a question?
Sure.
If I could. Barbara, is there any plan at all to move the sculpture park into the common at all? Or is it, was it not, it seems like it's kind of out of the way now. It's like over there.
Right. Well,
I was wondering.
we have a
Right.
lot of plans on what will actually happen is hard to say. Originally, the select board who controls the property did not want to put sculptures on the common. They are now more open to that
Yeah,
idea.
sure.
It is our hope actually that we might actually, we may do both, that we'll have sculptures in the park area and eventually expand out into the common area or possibly down Center Street along the municipal buildings. So we have many, many grand plans and we don't actually have the funding to do them yet.
Right. So that hasn't been disregarded. It's just on
No,
hold for the
it
moment.
certainly is
Okay,
not
thanks.
out of the question. We hope to do that in the future, Ernie.
Right, for sort of
Thank
like a
you.
sculpture trail, that would be fantastic,
Yes,
you know?
yes.
Yeah. And then bring them right down into
Thanks.
the center of town for the-
Exactly.
yeah. Great. Housing partnership.
So I can speak on that, Mr. Chair. So I am again working with the Housing Partnership, and we are doing a housing needs assessment. We are midway through it. I did email all of you. We're looking on the main part of the needs assessment. So we have all the demographic data that MAPC, our consultants, have tabulated, and they've done a deep dive into the demographics and kind of housing in town. But part of the RFP was really to look at do focus groups so that we can get more detailed information about what what people's housing journeys have been in Burlington. Are their needs met? Has it been difficult? Has it been easy? And so we are asking the public to kind of volunteer to be part of these focus groups. So I've emailed all of you guys to kind of get out to your networks. We're trying to access people that don't usually have a voice or don't feel like they have a voice in government to really get them more involved. And so the first way is you guys reaching out to your contacts. But if anybody at home listening is interested, I know that the Burlington Housing Partnership on their Facebook page, there'll be more information on how to sign up to do that. I think as well as on their website, that I would have to double check, but I think that the most current information would be on the partnership's Facebook. And as always, you can always email us, planning@burlington.org, and I can give you information on how to go about doing that.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Recreation Commission, we did talk about, again, for the applicants that come before us that want to be involved with some of the community stuff, that they reach out to them, which I did a couple times tonight. We did talk about redoing the basketball court and losing the 2 spaces there, and I asked the folks here to see if they had any additional input. I think one input from the last meeting was the porta potty, and I said if that could be put plants around it. He says that's in the parking lot, of that, of kind of between the basketball hoop and the baseball field. And so I said, if there's something we can do to beautify that up a little bit, there is a fence around it, but maybe to put some trees around that or kind of beautify that area up a little bit while they're doing that. And that was taken positively. That's what I had for a Recreation Commission, Economic Development Committee. I think Mike is the
No.
representative.
No real update.
Okay, thank you, Mike. And Transportation Committee, that is Mr. Ernie, right?
Yeah, no real updates. Still dealing with the app that
Oh, yeah.
promotes ride sharing or yeah, yes, that's.
Okay. And Ernie, you're on the ZBRC signage subcommittee, are you as well?
I am, and there were 2 articles in front of town meeting last night. It seems like town meeting said, okay, there was a little bit of discussion. I think it was more confusion on, each of basically the sections in the zoning bylaw have a purpose. Why is this even here type thing? And that's what Sally was trying to do with that. And little confusion. Hopefully it gets resolved, or was resolved. Thank you.
Yeah, that's always difficult. I've been in a couple of the signed bylaw committees myself over the
Yeah,
years.
yeah.
It's never easy. Unfinished business, I thought we were going to go over. We said we're going to look at monthly with the open items that we have. It's been a couple of weeks, a couple of meetings, so I thought maybe we can see that next time with regard to things like, now I forget now, but Airbnb, there was some propane tanks, and I forget, maybe tree wells. There was a couple of items there that we have, and we're going to put a list of that and review them. I think you said monthly. If we can do that for next meeting. A couple of things I had for new business. The jewelry store next to the where the auto parts store is going to be, kind of one building down. I think I mention this every year. Christmas lights go up in November, and they're still up today. So they've got Christmas tree lights November, December, January, and February. So if we can ask them to, I don't want to be a Scrooge here, but they're first to go up and they're last to go down with the particular Jewish site. If you guys know what I'm talking about, and I know they came before us, and we would have had certain conditions on them to, so maybe you can help them motivate. And they're usually once we ask them, they do take them down or they shut them off. So
Does that mean I have to take down my Christmas tree?
not you. You can keep it up.
I'm
As long as
joking.
it's inside your house. But I think you had a neighbor that was pretty festive. A couple of houses down from you, Barbara. When I went to my parents there, they were pretty wild on that. Then, and the only thing that additionally I did see the legal seafood landscape plan. I reviewed it very quickly. Provided that to some of the members to take a look at here, and I'm going to look at it in more detail. But again, this is one of the things where it looked like they provided probably the smallest available bushes that they could along the front. Granted, they did put some along the front, which was asked, but they've got to be the smallest ones that they could possibly put there. So I'll take another look at that and provide some formal feedback to staff and to Legal Seafoods on that.
I agree with
Appreciate them
them.
putting some more green space, but it's if we could be more specific on that maybe in the future. That's what I had. Anybody else have any new business?
I don't
No,
have
I
new
just want to
business.
commend the
Sorry.
chairman for his good job tonight.
Thank you, Mr. Raymond. Yes, staff.
Sure. I don't have new business, but I just wanted to mention that we have very, very sad news as our wonderful best ever recording clerk is Dawn. I think you'll still be with us for a meeting or so. I think you mentioned, but
Oh no.
No,
To the end
Dawn,
of
don't
March.
go.
End of
end
March.
of March.
Oh.
Okay,
End
so
of
we
March.
have 2
Don't
more with you.
go.
But Dawn
Kristen, can
has
we
been.
pay her more to stay?
I know. I would if I could, and we can campaign if we want to. But Dawn. Anyway, Dawn, you have been literally one of the best recording clerk that we've ever had,
Definitely.
and your turnaround and your
Your
really being
accuracy.
concise and
Yep.
getting all of the information and capturing the meeting without writing a book is fantastic. So I just
Yep.
wanted to recognize your great work over the last couple of years, and so I'm glad you'll be with us for 2 more meetings, but just wanted to make sure that we all recognize how it's kind of a behind the curtain kind of job, but
Yep.
it's super important, and you've done a wonderful job.
Yeah,
Thank you
thank
so
you.
much.
Here.
Dawn, absolutely. I mean, I can't imagine doing that for, 4 hours plus at a time from longer meetings and the minute meetings that you come out with, again, like staff said, are accurate, concise, and I think you did an excellent job of that. I think it's going to be big shoes to fill. That's a hard act to follow what you've done. So,
Indeed.
kudos to you. So thanks very much, Dawn. Really
Thank
appreciate
you so
it.
much. I appreciate that.
Yeah.
Thanks.
Don, if you ever want to come back.
No, and I don't blame you if you don't.
Fine.
Because
I've been doing this for 25 years, so
25 years.
I it's time for me to take a break.
You kind of got good at it, huh?
Thank you so much.
Thank you. We'll really appreciate it.
Thanks.
Okay. It's a terrible way to end the meeting, but do I have a motion?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
Motion made and seconded. Roll call, please.
Chairman Gaffney,
Yes.
Member Clerk Raymond,
Yes.
Member Covino,
Yes.
Member Espejo,
Yes.
Member Impemba,
Yes.
Member LaRue.
Thank you. And just for staff, are we going online still? Are we thinking of going in person one of these days? Things seem to be letting
So
up.
we're still keeping applicants and the public online, but we started to talk with Brenda about, we as the board can certainly meet together in the meeting room. For the next 2 meetings, because we've already posted them, we can certainly be together in the meeting room, but we'll still be a hybrid. I mean, I think we're going to be hybrid for as many moons to come.
Yeah.
But we certainly can be together, and I think Brenda was looking. Was it our next meeting or the meeting after that? It was either the first or second meeting of March, and we'll certainly communicate. But if those of you that are comfortable to meet together in the meeting room, it will just be us, so we certainly can provide this adequate spacing.
Okay. Thank you. Yeah, I don't know if you want to poll the members separately without, doing that publicly, seeing what their feelings are on that. That's how we're doing it work. We're polling even stuff I'm doing is national committees, and we're thinking of flying somewhere, and we're doing polling separately just to see, not to get people, publicly to say where they're at with that, which is fine.
Yeah, no, we'll send something up.
Okay, great. Thank you very much. Thank you, everyone.
Night, everybody.
Good job. Good job, Bill.
Thank you. Good night.